our backup recording is live now, and we are recording live. And we're broadcasting live, I should say. And do we have our opening things for WandaVision? Do we have
Yes.
opening
Sure.
comment for WandaVision? Okay. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slash Filmcast. I am David Chen. Sorry, guys. I fucked this up. I apologize. I'm just gonna leave it running. I'm gonna leave it running. Here we go.
Yep.
Beatty, take this out. Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slash Filmcast. I am David Chen, and I think they should have called it Red Herring Vision. Joining me today is Devindra Hardawar.
The real villain was Wanda all along.
And also Jeff Kanata.
I'm speaking right now, so you know which of us is which.
And Jeff Kanata's back. Hey, Jeff, welcome, man. How's it
Thank
going,
you.
dude?
It's going a lot better than it had been. It's going a lot better.
Did you get any well wishes from our listeners? I told them to send you some
I
tweets. Yes?
It was lovely. Yes, it was very lovely. Thank you all for the support. I am very sick of having to thank people for the support. I mentioned to you guys, like one crazy surgery that knocks you out of podcasting is kind of quaint and charming, perhaps. It's like it's a chance to really show somebody we appreciate them. But one's a fluke, two's a trend, three's a problem. What's that? I'm in a two's a trend, and I don't like it.
I have some more questions to ask about the surgery, but first, I want to mention you can find more episodes of this podcast at slashfilmcast.com. Email us at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. If you want to support the show, very easy to do that by going to patreon.com/filmpodcast. That's patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes as well as exclusive After Darks. This week on the After Dark, we'll be discussing Coming to America, or what I like to call Coming One America. That's what we're going to refer to it for the whole After Dark. Plus,
it's the best title.
We got some mailbag stuff to go through as well. So that's what we got in store for the exclusive After Dark at patreon.com/filmpodcast. On this week's episode, we got some what we've been watching for you. We got some weekly plugs. We're going to conclude with an in-depth review of WandaVision, which is streaming right now on Disney Plus. Just wrapped up its first and likely only season. But before we get to all that, Jeff, let's talk. What the heck happened? Now, I read a fairly clinical description of what happened to you on the podcast last week.
Yeah.
But tell us about your experience of it.
Well, I don't know how far back we want to go, but I started out as a child.
Mother, Mrs. Kanata.
Yes. No. So exactly. First the dinosaurs came, and then no, I don't know, several months ago started experiencing things that I'm sure some of our listeners noticed, where my voice would cut out. I'm sure most people thought it was just their podcast or some weird audio glitch on their iPhones or whatever. But it was me. It was my voice cutting out, specifically when I would say H sounds and long vowel sounds like ah. And I would say hey, hey, hey. It would cut out. My voice would like stop working. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but I make my living entirely by speaking. It is weird. It is weird when the two biggest ailments you have in your life are your eyes and your voice.
It's like your body trying to tell you something. Like,
it's the two things that are absolutely required to do any of my jobs. It's not like I lost I lost the use of my legs, or I had a hip problem or some kind of shoulder issue, all of which I could continue working. No, I have to get things that literally go right to the heart of what I do for my income. It's just a delightful.
Because you use those muscles so much, Jeff. That's why.
Yeah, probably true. I had been doing 2 years of the dungeon run where I was doing really crazy vocal things. I have there's over 200 different character voices that I did for that show, and 4 hours of doing really crazy voices probably impacted it. But what the doctor specifically said was that it was because I'm a chronic throat clearer. I clear my throat obsessively. And so that can cause actually damage to your vocal cords, which is a bummer because now I have a habit I need to break.
Oh,
but
boy.
So anyway, so I went and got it checked. The first doctor I went to, after I went to my general doctor, he sent me to an ear, nose, and throat guy. Ear, nose, and throat guy said, I can deal with this, but you you make your living using your voice. I'd rather send you to a specialist. So I went to the specialist at UCLA, and they, put a tube down my nose into my throat and scoped it out all while I was sitting there looking at it. He's like, oh, there it is. And it's this big growth on my vocal cords called the granuloma. I don't think there was ever any discussion of it being potentially cancerous at all. But anyway, they said it needed to be removed. And I had scheduled this was like end of last year that I found this out. I told you guys, at some point I'm going to be gone for a week or two because I'm going to have vocal surgery. And so I was, scheduling it far out, and I scheduled it for the end of March. And I was trying to move it up because I was cutting out quite frequently on my shows, on this show and others. And it was getting very frustrating that I couldn't get my thoughts out because I couldn't speak. I couldn't finish a sentence. And so I called the doctor and tried to get an earlier appointment time. And that was kind of happening. I was waiting for cancellations. And then sort of as that was happening last week or the week before, whenever it was, I don't know what changed, but all of a sudden, like, I couldn't talk at all. I was talking like this. It was like really bad. Yeah, it was like I couldn't talk. And
so that was after the last, like 2 weeks ago, we recorded an episode. It would have been after that it started really going downhill.
Yeah. And I don't know if there was anything that caused it. I don't know. It just sort of, one day I couldn't make words. And so I called the doctor, or my wife called the doctor, and she was like, we've been waiting to try to get an earlier appointment time. And this is what it has right now. Oh, and it was the first time I had experienced any pain.
Right.
I was also experiencing pain for the first time. I had not had any pain or even discomfort. It was just this annoying, like my voice would cut out. And then all of a sudden I had pain. And so we told the doctor I had pain, and this really had gotten worse. And he goes, I'll schedule for you for tomorrow. So he goes, we'll do the surgery tomorrow. And I didn't really follow up on that, but it scared the shit out of me. Like when a doctor's like, we're trying to fit you in. And then it's like, we're doing it tomorrow. That's not usually the best sign. So
you don't want the words abrupt and surgery to be in the same sentence regarding something you need to do in general. Yeah.
Right. He's like, yeah, well, before that I was like, well, we'll try to fit you in, or maybe we can get you early if there's a cancellation, no rush. And then I was like, I can't talk. And he goes, we're doing it tomorrow. I'll clear my schedule. It's like, oh, that's not good. But it worked out really well because I didn't have to, anticipate it and worry and be scared and try to get work. And it just, like,
it's probably the best outcome, Jeff. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, you get it done sooner. Yeah. That's the best.
Well, first of all, Jeff, I'm very, very sorry that, and it sounds like you, after a couple days of not talking, that you seem to be doing well now. You're on the mend.
I had several days of not being able to talk. Well, I want to just mention to you guys what the experience of the surgery was.
Please.
Because I think it will be a delight to our listeners.
Yes. Content warning, Jeff surgery, but continue.
Yes, exactly. Trigger warning. At the risk of, making this way outstay its welcome, I will tell you that,
continue.
I've been waiting to tell you guys this. I've been so excited to tell you this.
Yes.
So general anesthesia sucks. I hate it. But I've done it before, right? It's like old hat.
Why do you hate it? Now
general
I'm curious.
anesthesia?
Yeah.
It's awful. Have you done it? Have you had it?
Yes.
Oh, I hate it.
I think it's great.
No way, dude.
Yep.
It makes me nauseated. I feel I'm like, for a week after, I'm like not myself. It's fucked.
All right. Well, agree to disagree on that. But anyway, continue.
you do it recreationally. I understand.
I'm on it right now.
That explains a lot, actually, Dave, the show quality.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks.
It's very believable. So I'm
Why are you
sitting there,
putting
right?
down your own show, Jeff?
Yeah,
Like, I
no,
don't get
no.
this.
Why did
You're
you
not
come
helping.
just to boo us? Okay, anyway, go ahead.
I'm saying boo earns. The moments before, right? You're sitting there, you're waiting. They get the IV in you. You know, you're waiting there. You got your anticipation. You're sitting there in your fucking gown with no back on it. You know, everything's stripped off. You have to take your wedding ring off. You're just sitting there, just like a plucked hen waiting to be brought to slaughter. You know, it's not good. And I'm not a fan of any of that stuff. I don't like hospitals. I don't like any of that stuff. No, needles. Anyway, so I'm sitting there, and the pre-op guy comes, or a nurse, I guess it would be, comes over, and he says, I have, a few things. I need you to sign the waiver. He said, we're going to go into your throat with a laser, and we are going to remove a granuloma that's on your vocal cords. I said, yes. He's like, okay, well, do you have any loose teeth?
And I said, yeah. It's because they got to they got to put a tube down your throat, right? Is that right?
Not just a tube, but like he said, there's a lot of equipment. There's a laser. There's a lot of equipment going into your mouth.
And it can like dislodge your teeth as it's on the way out.
It can knock your fucking teeth out.
Yes.
And I was like, no, okay. He said, there's so much stuff in your face that we could possibly knock loose teeth out. I said, okay, well, no, that's great, but okay. It's like, okay, there's one more thing. And again, it's in very rare cases, but by law, I have to mention it because it is a possibility. We will be using a laser on your throat. And so there is the very rare possibility that we could set your face on fire.
Oh my God.
Sign here, please.
Do you know Dr. Doom? Do you know that face?
Yeah.
That could be you.
I think it's more like The Weeknd, right? Like, I can't feel my face when I'm with you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I'd prefer to be the supervillain after that. But yeah, I guess. So that was what I went in was. It's very rare that we set people's faces on fire. But it happens enough times that we have to mention it.
It's like Broken Arrow. Like, I don't know what's scarier, nuclear weapon getting stolen, or that it happens so often there's a term for it.
Exactly.
But Jeff, please, resolve the suspense for us. Did your face get set on fire or not?
Oh yeah, no, of course, yeah. I should have mentioned. I have no face. No, a man without a face. No, I thankfully, if it happened, they put it out quick enough that I didn't notice. I was deep under anesthesia.
Excellent.
And then I got out and couldn't talk, and that was annoying. And I was using my phone to just a notepad feature on my phone to just type messages to my wife. And the next day, I didn't ever delete any of those messages. I just went to a new line and kept writing. Right.
Yeah.
The next day, I look at this stream of things that I wrote to my wife, and I remembered none of them. I remembered thinking none of those thoughts that I said to my wife.
Can you still have the text? Can you read some of them to us? Or
oh God, I don't know if I should. I don't know how. I mean, some of them were.
Assuming they're not personal, right?
I mean, a couple of them were here. It's on my phone. Let me see if I can find them. Oh man!
It sounds like you had the Ambien thing happen to you almost. But
yeah, it's
you were sleep texting, I guess.
Well, I was under
sleep
general
messaging.
anesthesia. I was like out of my mind, blotto out of my mind.
This should be a podcast.
Here it is.
People
Okay,
under general
here it
anesthesia.
Yep.
Trying to pull myself together is the first one I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
No memory of writing that.
Literally what Jeff texts me before every episode as well, by the way. But yes, continue. That's like a common text that you send, though.
Yeah. Did you get all the info about what I can eat, how long I can't talk, everything? That's a pretty coherent.
Yes.
It's
Pretty
coherent.
coherent.
Practical.
Good job.
Practical.
Sleepy Jeff. Yeah.
Can I have juice?
mommy, can I have juice?
You're basically regressing, right, into your childlike state, right?
Didn't I already do that? I don't know what that's in reference to at all. Was surgery a success? And then I wrote, this is one that'll give you this is one I should definitely not say on the show, but it gives you a window into my marriage and myself and saint my wife is for living with me. I wrote, proud of you for saying nauseated.
Instead of nauseous, right?
Yes,
Instead
exactly.
of nauseous, because
which is
for those who don't
grammatically
know,
incorrect.
Nauseous means creating nausea in those around you, and people use it incorrectly, like they use literally incorrectly.
Yes. Yeah.
But Jeff, we've already lost the nauseated wars. That's the thing. Is
I
like,
know we have.
You're like that person
we've
who's
lost
stuck
it.
in the jungle after 20 years after the war is over, and you're still thinking you're part of the war.
I know.
You know,
That's
like
just
you're
me. I'm a
fighting the
militant
nauseated
grammarian.
war. We're on to the, you know, I mean, the literally wars are already over as well.
Yes. I helped lose that war personally.
Well, then you
and
really
despite
have
my
nothing
best
to
efforts.
say, do you, Jeff? You really have no defense.
I have no defense, and yet I still fight.
Yeah. Well, first of all,
wait, I have one last thing to read. I probably can't one up that one, but I have one last thing to read that I have no memory writing. Is
that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. That's delightful,
Yeah.
by the way.
says I want more of that mac and cheese so bad, but every time I take a bite, it makes me feel like shit. I have no memory of eating mac and cheese. I have no memory of saying that or thinking it.
When last have you had mac and cheese? Like this must be
clearly
like
then.
some glorious mac and cheese that man. I wonder if you're like remembering past life mac and cheese at this point.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I'm sad you're still fighting the nauseated wars. I mean, Jeff, they're wars we can still win. Irregardless, for instance, you know.
Yes.
We can still fight
Irregardless
back.
means with regard to. It does. Right?
Yes. The flammable, inflammable wars, you know, are still like we still have forces that can advance against the enemy there. But
the other war I died on the hill of was celibate chaste. Oh man. I fought that one so hard. Celibate doesn't mean chaste. We have a word for chaste. It's chaste.
This whole discussion is that meme guy that's alone at a party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It means something, and everyone else is having fun.
In one 10-minute segment, I went from getting everyone's sympathy to completely turning the tide and losing all of that sympathy and now I'm the villain. You know,
you're the villain now.
You live long enough to become the villain.
You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And
it's a full season of WandaVision in 10 minutes.
In Jeff's case, it's about 15 minutes of time.
Right
there.
Keep talking long enough to turn yourself into the villain. That's my world.
Well, Jeff, we're so glad you're okay, and sorry you had to go through that.
And thank you both for being gracious and understanding when I was unable to do the show last week. And you guys are always so great. You know, it's becoming the next time my body invariably fails in some grandiose way, I know that you guys will always be there for me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, also Tara Ariano stepped in last week to fill in for you, and she did a great job. So it was a great episode last week. Did you have a chance to see Minari, by the way, Jeff? I think a lot of people were curious what your thoughts were on that film.
I did not. I'm sorry, I did not.
I hope you check it out. Maybe a Minari limerick might be in the works at some point in the future.
I hope that they at some point. I know it's set in the 80s. I hope at some point they play Atari, right? It's just for the rhyme.
Not that kind of movie, Jeff.
They didn't.
Not that kind of movie.
It's in the 80s.
So before we move on, one last topic I want to discuss with you is I want to ask you about messaging. What happened to you? Because I think you were a little bit more forthcoming with your eye surgery last time, and I had an interesting scenario recently when I had my deep vein thrombosis occur. Right, I started Instagram storying my deep vein thrombosis.
It sounds like a band. It sounds like the coolest band.
Instagramming my deep vein thrombosis.
Yes.
And because I didn't know,
at Coachella?
I was just like, hey, look, my hand's all messed up today. Like, isn't this weird? Okay, time to go to the doctors. Oh, what's that you say? I must go to the ER immediately, or something terrible might happen. You know, and I was kind of like, and slowly, my phone started to just explode with people who were concerned about what was going to happen. Like, they wanted to know what the outcome was. And of course, I'm lying in a hospital bed in the ER, extremely grateful for the concern. But now I want to respond to people, right? Because you want to honor their concern, right? And I guess I'm curious, like, if you took a more low key approach to sharing about it this time on purpose, or because there's like, on the one hand, it's so amazing and lovely that we have people that care whether we die.
Yeah.
On the other hand,
It is nice.
On the other hand, it's like we do want to respond to those people, and that can be challenging in times when we are under sedation or other or recovering, right? And so I guess I'm curious, like, what your social media strategy was for this most
the most
recent
important
surgery?
part.
Yes.
The most important part of any surgery is the social media
Well,
strategy.
first of all, we already
around it.
covered the important parts, which is that you're
Yeah.
okay, Jeff. So now that we've moved on from that, let's talk about the ephemeral nonsense, which
The
is
honest answer to what you're asking is more to do with what I said earlier, which is that I had the genuine feeling that a second surgery so soon, it was just getting tacky. You know, it's like I'm just the bad health guy. You know, I don't want to be the bad. My entire life, I've been so hearty and hale. My
Right.
body has been reliable. I have been I do endurance running. I've been a guy who has had a very hospital-free life, and I'm very fortunate. I feel very privileged about that. But it's part of my identity was that I was always the guy. Like I didn't have health problems, you know. And I remember when I would go in to get a checkup or something, and the doctor would be like, you know, that list of things. Have you ever had this?
Right.
I would be like, no to all of it. You know, it's like, no, those things don't happen to me. I'm not a guy, you know, I've been a healthy guy my whole life, which is a very fortunate position to be in. I understand, but it just was kind of like a given. It just felt like a given. And all of a sudden now all these things are failing in kind of dramatic ways. And again, they all come to the core of my persona, my online
Right.
life, like my living, and what people know me for is my voice and my eyesight, things that I see and talk about. And so it just felt like, you know, I was the beneficiary of lovely sentiment when I had my eye surgery. It was a very scary thing. I was really, really scared of that. And I thought, you know, it was catastrophic. I thought it could really be a bad thing. And people were so wonderful and so sweet. And it felt like, okay, that's your one time to rely on the kindness of the audience. And now it's like, oh, now it's just this fucking recurring thing where I have every year I have some weird, I just didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to make it a big deal. And I was probably in denial a bit myself about just how, fragile I am and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple thoughts, and then we can move on from this topic. One is that makes a lot of sense, like that these things are you've kind of fashioned an identity around some of these things, around like being healthy and watching things and talking about things, right? Like that's
Yes.
Those are like critical components to your identity, it seems. And when those things are kind of under threat, like I understand why you might not want to share that, because it kind of goes against how you view yourself, right? But I have two thoughts. Number one is, I think we overall, as a country and maybe as a society in general, we live in an extremely ableist society that values ableism and makes disabled people or differently abled people, renders them invisible. An example of this is like, with coronavirus, we now have the ability to, many people have the ability to work from home. And it's because, hey, you can call into Zoom meetings now and so on. And these are accommodations that disabled people have been asking for decades, right? Years, decades. And it's only when everyone else got impacted by it that now as a society we're like, okay, fine, we can try this now. And oh, by the way, it's working fine. Obviously, there are some costs to it, but I'm just saying, like, I think overall we live in an ableist society, and I feel bad when I hear I think that all of us have some version of it in us that, like, if we're differently abled, we feel some kind of shame about it. And I don't think that should happen, right? And the second thing is, Jeff, people love you no matter what, man. And I just want you to know that, okay?
I appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah, most definitely. I wonder, Jeff, by the way, how does it feel watching a movie starring a 55-year-old man who looks like a goddamn god.
Yeah.
Like any comparisons happening?
Can I tell you real talk? Real talk?
Yeah.
Straight up real talk. About 30 minutes into watching Boss Level, which we will talk about later, I got up off the couch and walked over and I picked up a dumbbell and started doing curls. I am not even joking, dude. I'm not even joking. I was like, I need to do some curls.
There we go.
All
That's
right.
how we do it.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. We'll get into what we've been watching. But thanks for all your well wishes for Jeff. Jeff, we are glad you are back.
Thanks.
All right, folks, let's get to what we've been watching. Of course, you can always recommend something that you want us to watch by using the hashtag /tag on Twitter specifically. Again, that's the hashtag /tag on Twitter, and that's how you can recommend stuff we should watch.
All I had to do was have surgery and be out a week, and all my dreams are coming true.
It really made me feel like, what's what's literally the least I can do to honor Jeff's wishes? And one of the things is mention hashtag /tag at the top. So I'll try to do that.
It makes me disproportionately happy.
Okay, one of the things we all watched this week was a movie that I had no idea. I'd never heard of this movie until this last week. And sometimes what I do is I open up all the streaming apps, right? I open up the Prime Videos, I open up the Netflix, I open up the Hulu, because usually they'll put something on the front page that is their main thing of that week. And so I opened up Hulu and I saw this movie called Boss Level. I didn't even know until later that it was directed by Joe Carnahan.
It is wild that this movie, absolutely nothing. Heard nothing about this movie. I love Joe Carnahan.
And what a cast! Like there's the cast is crazy. You go like, what is even happening in this movie?
So
because Joe Carnahan called in some favors.
The short version of the plot of Boss Level, so we will give away the premise, is it's basically an action movie version of Groundhog Day. Right, it's like what we saw Groundhog Day, which is obviously transcendently great film. We saw like Palm Springs, which is like, what if Groundhog Day was a romantic comedy?
This is pretty much a year after Palm Springs too for Hulu. So
but isn't Groundhog Day a romantic comedy?
Is kind of romantic comedy. That's right, Jeff. That's right. That's right. But it transcends.
What if? No, get this. Get this. I got a great pitch for you. What if Groundhog Day, but it's a romantic comedy?
There was also another time loop movie on Amazon recently, the YA time loop movie. So a lot of time loop movies.
Actually, a number of hashtag /tag recommendations for that movie. In fact, I almost watched it a couple of times.
Yeah, and for some reason, like I'm completely blanking on the name right now.
It's
the map of tiny perfect things is the name of the movie.
Yeah.
So so this has been the year of Groundhog Day, Repeat Your Life movies, and the most recent entry is Boss Level, in which Frank Grillo wakes up every day on the last day of his life, and whenever he wakes up, people are trying to murder him, and he doesn't know why. Doesn't know why people are trying to murder him, but they always succeed. And so the movie kind of introduces us to his scenario, and he's trying to figure out what's going on and potentially get out of it. We all watched Boss Level this week, and here are my overall thoughts. I want to hear what your overall thoughts are, but like my overall thoughts on Boss Level, I thought this movie was a lot of fun. And the action scenes are inventive, and it's like, oh yeah, there's so much fun you could have with this premise that is we've only seen glimpses of in movies like Live, Die, Repeat, right? Like Live, Die, Repeat / Edge of Tomorrow, great movie, but it was kind of like a war movie, and this is more straight up action, and I really enjoyed it. But the thing I didn't like about Boss Level is literally everything that's not associated with action is awful. Like, not even just in terms of dialogue and script, but like literally, I think the filmmaking is bad. Just in terms of the blocking and the editing, it just is like, wow, this is rough. Whenever they get to the action, it's awesome, and whenever it's lengthy conversations between Frank Grillo and people in his life, I thought it was pretty rough. But overall, I had fun with it. It really kind of leans into this premise in a pretty interesting way. Jeff Canado, what did you think of Boss Level?
I watched it specifically because you texted us about it, and it was not on my radar. Other than that, there is fun to be had in this movie. There's some really fun stuff. I think it does not pay off its premise well enough for my money. I think that it leaves a lot. It tries to do a couple of different things all at the same time, and neither one really enough, in my opinion. Like, I would love the repeating day thing. There's one sequence where he kind of, does the Bill Murray learning the piano bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is cool, especially cool because the actor they got to do that with him.
Yeah.
But I feel like there was much more opportunity for him to manipulate. Like, there's one sequence where he tries to fight somebody and he over and over and over is killed by that person, and he keeps trying different things, and it's like, no, the fun is that you try the same thing with a slight variation every second, right? Like you do the Bill Murray, like, can I buy a drink? I always like to do a toast to world peace. You build it out step by step. You go, okay, well, if I point the gun over here, they're going to dodge to the right. So I'll force them to go to the right, and I'll know they're going to the right. Like that logic never really plays out well enough for my money. And the other thing they're trying to do in some kind of vague way is make this like a video game analogy.
Yeah.
Obviously, the title is on the nose with that, but it never really lands. Like, there's all this video game terminology, and to the movie's credit, they use actual video games. They don't make up fake ones; they use real ones.
They got licenses / permission to use the actual video games. Yeah.
Yes, but boy, I don't know if it irked anybody else when the guy's like, 8-bit forever, man. Like Altered Beast and Street Fighter. I'm like, those are not 8-bit games.
Those aren't
8-bit
games. Those aren't
Yes.
8-bit.
Yeah, it bothered
Also,
the
Street
shit out of
Fighter's
me.
not really a side scroller technically. I don't know.
And also,
anyway.
Also, the Street Fighter they were showing wasn't the retro Street Fighter. It was like, which clearly Capcom was like, no, show the current. We want to sell the current one, you idiots.
HD graphics, HD graphics. Come on.
Yeah. Anyway, so that kind of irked me, but it's this weird place where it wants to have video game references. It kind of wants to be whatever that Ryan Reynolds movie that we may see at some point. I think it's
Free Guy.
Yeah. I kind of feel like it was trying to sort of live in that space.
But also had a lot of contempt for gamers too, apparently.
Yeah. It just didn't. It never really was better than the sum of its parts. Some of its parts were fun, but it wasn't ever as fun as, say, oh shoot, what's that movie that was all shot in first person? Oh God.
Hardcore Henry, I think.
Yes. Hardcore Henry to me is like the best version. I mean, even though that didn't have time looping, but like, that movie had so much fun with what it was doing that I felt like this movie could have had a little bit more fun, and it could have been better. It's a goofy, fun ride, but yes, that's a better way to say it.
Devindra, your thoughts on Boss Level?
I had a lot of fun with this movie. I think as far as like streaming blockbusters go, what do we call these? Streambusters? Streaming busters. Streambusters.
Please no, don't call it that.
That is what
Block
it
streams?
feels like. Block stream? Ooh, no. But it does feel like between this and some of the stuff we've seen from Netflix,
Go ahead.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
It does feel like whenever they try to do blockbuster, right, they all feel constrained in some way, and especially like Hulu has never really gone super hard on action, so that requires a big budget usually. So I feel like this movie always felt a little constrained, though not as constrained as Joe Carnahan's Stretch, a movie we reviewed in 2014. Remember that? I like Joe Carnahan.
That was a Blumhouse production, right? It was only a few $1 million movie. This movie looks like it cost at least 4 times that much. So,
this I could say 50 or so or plus.
Very
or something,
respectable, very respectable looking film. Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with it. I really, I enjoy the way he handles action, and I've always had like a real thing for Joe Carnahan's direction. Like, it's very visceral and inventive and interesting. I'm talking like even going back to like Smoke and Aces or even bits of Narc, and he does action too that has usually kind of an emotional core that kind of gets you out of nowhere, and he really leaned on that in The Gray, which is a film I consider to be kind of a masterpiece, which also had Frank Grillo in it and had, starred Liam Neeson. They make fun of Liam Neeson in this movie. That was fun. This feels like a movie made for people who specifically like the stuff Joe Carnahan is doing. There is an emotional bit here between, Frank Grillo and his kind of like his son that he's never really had time with that really kind of works. It does feel forced and it does happen really quickly, but I also think like it hits certain points that I really kind of dug. It's just like enjoyable and fun. I think the things I don't really enjoy about it are that constrained budget, the fact that I feel like this concept could certainly go bigger and go harder. Um, Joe Carnahan has this thing for like really weird comedy too, if you'll remember from like Smokin' Aces. So that is in this movie a lot. And then of course there's Mel Gibson, and I try not to watch stuff with him in it. Like it just typically is a big turnoff for me right now and where I am. And he's fine, but the villain, like, yeah, they didn't really do much with this. I had a lot of fun with it though, like as a time loop movie, and as I, Joe Carnahan, like the way he shoots action is usually interesting. It's never
Yeah.
boring, and I expected to like, oh, I'll turn this on for 20 minutes and like maybe get back to it the next day. I sat down and watched this whole thing because I was just into it. Frank Grillo is really fun and charismatic, and like you will not believe this man is 55 years old when you see him shirtless. Like it is just ridiculous. So
It's
yeah,
a work of
I
art.
had a lot of fun.
It's a work of
Yeah.
art. His body is a work of art.
He is. Yeah.
Yeah, he's chiseled. Yeah, and it's a brisk 90 minutes, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy.
But
Easy
I agree
breezy.
with you, Jeff. I was like, oh, maybe Jeff will like the video game references of this movie, but then you're right, it never really connects in the end. You know, like
Not really,
it never
no.
really justifies all the video gamey stuff.
And it's got this rogues gallery of wacky bad guys that
Love it.
it never justifies why that's the
No,
thing.
no.
I kept waiting for
it explains the reason for that. It explains the reason
Yeah.
for that. But
the one line that
correct.
Mel Gibson says
Yes,
is like,
that's
get
right.
the wackiest characters
Yes,
you
get
can
the wackiest
find.
characters ever. That's right. That's right, Jeff.
I would like to have had more about that personally.
All right. Well, I had a lot of fun with Boss Level. I would actually recommend it if you're into
Yeah.
repeating day movies. It's like another twist on it,
Yeah.
and it's not great. It's not an amazing film, but it's pretty fun. And
I think the definition of a good sit as an
yeah,
action movie
yeah.
goes. Yeah.
that's right.
It's a
That's
good
right.
sit.
All right. So that's Boss Level. It's streaming right now on Hulu. So two things happened that just are extremely rare in the history of Slash Filmcast.
Mm-hmm.
I did something that Jeff Kanata suggested, and also Jeff Kanata was right. And
I am having
Oh,
surgery
no.
every week, you guys.
And the thing I did was watch a movie called Captain Fantastic at Jeff's
Yeah.
recommendation. And I think this movie, there are some problems with this movie, and I think it is a little bit melodramatic at points, and it is a little bit of a shaggy movie. It's as shaggy as the titular character in the film. But I've never seen anything like this movie. Like this,
Yeah.
I can't recall anything I've seen, in a long time that is like the plot of this film, and that kind of has the messages of this film, and it has the execution of this film. And
It's a movie that has totally stayed with me since I watched it. It informs my life in a lot of ways.
so, Jeff, I might pitch you like a separate, Patreon or something recording to do about this later. But in the meantime, I'm going to read the premise of Captain Fantastic. So if you don't want to know the premise, then skip ahead. But and also I want to mention, by the way, interestingly, Jeff, I don't know if it was a coincidence or if the folks at Netflix are listening to us, but after we
I know.
talked about this movie a couple weeks ago, it is
I
now
saw
on Netflix.
I know, it was crazy. I popped up on the new to Netflix. I was like, what?
What?
Yeah, pretty
Right
great.
after Jeff once again, and by the way, the
Slash
movie
Filmcast effect.
Well, one of the movies we're talking about next week also is related to something we've been talking about in the Slash Filmcast, but we'll get to that later. But here's the premise of Captain Fantastic. Quote, in the forests of the Pacific Northwest, a father devoted to raising his 6 kids with a rigorous physical and intellectual education is forced to leave his paradise and enter the world, challenging his idea of what it means to be a parent. End quote. So this movie is, about Viggo Mortensen. He lives with his kids in the woods. He kind of trains them not only to survive with just a knife and nothing else, but also to be intellectual, right? To understand Dostoevsky and Noam Chomsky and things like that. And they're all hyper intelligent and extremely physically capable. They're basically all superhumans in some ways. But of course, there's some challenges. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, but it's not. There's no like tongue in cheek to it. There's no like he's making superheroes. He's not training them to. He's raising people in a way that he feels creates the best people.
He believes this will allow them to be their most actualized and best selves, basically.
Yeah.
And this movie really resonated with me, Jeff. I'm not going to get into the movie itself, really, because I don't think we really have time for that. But I want to say why it really resonated with me is because what this movie is about, fundamentally, Captain Fantastic, is the idea of living your life in defiance of societal norms. Right, like what is life like when all the assumptions that society places on you, you disregard and say, "I know a better way." And in many ways, if you're right about that, right, there's a reason why society is organized the way it is. But what if you were right about a lot of things and you organize life in a different way? And I have felt that a lot in the last year with COVID, in the sense that if we all knew we'd be living with COVID. And like, it wasn't sure at all, by the way, that we would be having vaccines ready to go in a year, right? Like the shortest time we'd ever done a vaccine was 4 years. Now, like my parents are getting injected with vaccines. Incredible. But imagine a scenario where this was going to take years to resolve. And it probably, by the way, we should point out, like COVID will be with us for a long time, possibly forever. So it's not like it's going to be over, but like imagine a scenario where like most of us still had to be under lockdown for years. How would we have designed society differently to accommodate that, right? I'll tell you one thing that we probably would do differently is we probably wouldn't all live in single-family homes because they're incredibly inefficient, right, in terms of sharing resources and sharing responsibilities and sharing wealth and so on and so forth. It's just not an efficient way when we want to see people and when, it doesn't make sense for like two families with like two sets of kids to like need to hire two babysitters and two or nannies or what have you, and to make like two different sets of meals. And, it just doesn't make any sense. And I feel like I've gotten a little taste of that in terms of like bucking against what society has dictated, in that we've invited someone to live with us in our COVID bubble. Someone moved in next door. We see each other and no one else. We share a lot of meals together. We share a lot of other things like resources together. And it's amazing. It's been an incredibly enriching experience that never would have happened if it weren't for COVID, which was a terrible tragedy that also fundamentally allowed me to question assumptions I had about how I had to live. And this is a movie that raises that very thing up, that very notion, that very idea, and allows you to turn it over in your head and think to yourself, what assumptions do I have about life that need not be held to? So that's kind of what I took away from it, Jeff. Because in light of what we've lived through this last year, I've spent a lot of time thinking like, how would I reconfigure life if, all bets were off and we were living under a completely different environment? And I think Captain Fantastic really goes in on that. Any other thoughts, Jeff? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it is a movie about big ideas like that. And that's why it has stuck with me and why it is one of those movies that I put in my favorites of all time, mostly because of how often I mentally reference it. It's one of those movies that has asked questions that no other movie really has asked me and made me constantly check my life against those questions. Which it's a fascinating thing that art can do, and I think it's all too rare. I do have a question for you, Dave. I brought it up most recently in the context of your Letterboxd list.
Yes, it's still to come. Still to come. I have not made it yet, but I am planning on it.
But perfect for that, no?
Yes, I would agree. Very extremely minor spoiler for the. I mean, not even a spoiler because I didn't even know who you were referring to, Jeff. when you gave this part away. So extremely minor spoiler about the film, but part of the film involves what to do with a body, like what to do with a dead body. And that we were talking a couple weeks ago. I don't remember if it was After Dark or regular show about. It was in the After Dark about movies that have influenced how I want my life to end and how I want my remains disposed of. This is the high quality content you can get at patreon.com/filmpodcast.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're talking about movies that really impacted me. Get Low being one of them, The Fountain being another one. And I don't know if this one qualifies, but I definitely appreciated that it kind of tackles that topic. So yeah,
I thought it for sure would make the list. It's interesting.
I did tweet out the premise of the list recently on my Twitter account, and I got really great answers that I didn't even think about. And so I'm grateful. So I'm like, now this list is getting much richer now. So I'm really excited to finally build this list.
I cannot tell you how delighted I am that A, you watched the film, and B, you enjoyed the film. So it may be a first on both fronts.
Yeah, indeed. So the movie's Captain Fantastic. Stream it now on Netflix. By the way, so I tweeted this. I said, I'm starting a new letterbox list and wondering if people have opinions on whether there are movies that shaped how you want your life to end. And I'm gonna make a list out of the serious answers, but some of these responses are pretty funny, Jeff. Like they're very Jeff style responses. Definitely don't want to go out in any bone tomahawk style.
Yeah,
that's what.
Yeah,
Alex Delia.
Very neat and easy to take care of those remains, though. Yeah, not just one big body, right? Like you can really sort that. Yeah.
Brian Erase says, "I definitely do not want to end up in 13 Zemetti." I don't know if have you guys seen 13 Zemetti?
No.
I know of what they're referring to.
13 Zemetti is a movie about basically a Russian roulette club. And basically people get paid a lot of money, and what you do is you stand around in a circle, everyone has one bullet in their revolver, they point the gun to the person on their right, and everyone pulls the trigger at the same time. That's 13 Zemetti.
Who is the roulettista?
It's a good question. Good question, Jeff. That's Captain Fantastic, streaming right now on Netflix, and that is another thing I've been watching this week. One last thing I want to talk about that I've been watching, it looks like Devindra also has been watching it this week, is Oprah's interview with Meghan Markle.
Apparently all of Twitter was watching it last night.
And Prince Harry.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, I did not think that I would be somebody who cared about the machinations of the royals.
You Mr. The Crown over here, Mr. I watched 1.5 seasons of The Crown over here.
Well, that's the thing.
Biggest fan of The Crown.
I did that, it's like, not only am I like, I don't want to follow what's going on with the royals, I actively look down on people who did. But then I watched The Crown. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a really good show, first of all. And secondly, it's revealing, it's bringing to light the extremely horrific practices of this these damaging, abusive, horrifying practices of this British institution that has been part of British life for over a millennia.
Yeah. And the family that's reshaped the world and invented colonialism. You know, like there is so much going on there. Yeah.
Right. And so I found myself unexpectedly incredibly invested in what happened at this interview. And I just want to start by saying this interview, the Oprah interview with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, which aired on CBS last night, was an incredibly compelling hour of television. Like, I thought it just was a really good interview that yielded bombshell after bombshell after bombshell. Many people describe it as like Meghan Markle loaded up a B-52 full of weaponry, and Prince Harry got in the cockpit and just like unloaded all on the royal family. Like
it's also Oprah at the height of her powers.
Yes,
right?
she is at the height of her. She's doing a great job. Yeah. She handled the interview really well. It was a really great hour, a couple hours of television actually. So let me pause there, Devindra, because I've been talking for a long time. What did you think of the Oprah interview on CBS?
Oh yeah, let me just say I certainly did not expect to be so interested in this either, but apparently it was as if it's one of those things, right? In a movie where everybody just starts doing the dance sequence. It was as if everybody planned to watch this last night on Twitter and just like really document every single second of it. So it was like after a certain point, after seeing the revelations coming out of there, I was like, I got to get in on this thing. So I turned it on. I watched it today with my wife, and talk about a loss for Paramount Plus, by the way. Let's just take a little sidebar
Yeah,
here.
from a business standpoint, this
Yeah.
was like so many streaming platforms would be like love to have
Kill.
a piece
Yeah,
of event television. I didn't want to say kill, but would
Oh,
love
yeah,
to
yeah.
have a piece of event television like this. Like this is this is a must-watch piece of television
Yeah.
that's going to kickstart your streaming service into the stratosphere.
CBS spent millions of dollars for this interview.
Yes.
For the exclusive rights to this interview. Yeah.
And basically on Paramount Plus, the experience was you could watch it live and not
Yeah.
at all afterwards. Like
because
the second,
Oprah owns the streaming rights.
correct.
Yeah.
So the second the interview is over, it's gone from the platform. So this was one of the biggest misses out of any streaming
Man.
platform launch ever. And
Man.
so huge loss for them, and also a terrible experience for West Coasters. Because I got to tell you, Devindra, I was was really fuming. I'm like, people are just tweeting about this thing, and I'm not.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
read the tweets because I can't.
I
watch
can't be in the
it.
conversation.
I can't be in the
Man.
conversation. What the? And yeah, like it was broadcast at 8 p.m. Eastern time and 8 p.m. Pacific. So if you were on West Coast, you had to wait 3 hours when all the media people had already been talking about it on Twitter to finally watch this interview.
Yep.
Not that I care a lot. Anyway, go ahead, Devindra.
But yeah, I thought this was a really fantastic interview, just because as somebody who was born, in a British colony, right? And my grandparents were alive when my birth country of Guyana achieved independence. Like, that's a thing they talk about in the moment of people like cheering in the streets, where a country could kind of finally control its own destiny. The idea, I'm not like a royal follower or anything, and the crown is fine. Like, I'll enjoy that like as an entertainment thing. But I'm really interested in Meghan Markle's story, just because it's a very interesting thing that's like, this is the moment for the royal family to do something new and interesting, and kind of like step up to the moment of bringing in somebody who's not only American, but not white. And I think that's like a big step for such a huge institution that is at the core, of the British government and empires around the world. And they failed. They absolutely failed. Like, judging from what we see in this interview is just kind of horrific and kind of abusive, what they've done to her. It was a great interview just because it was Oprah just asking very smart questions and knowing when to interject, knowing when to go deeper, knowing when to just sit
knowing
back
when to
and
come
listen.
back to things
Yeah,
that like
yeah.
she knew the audience would want to come back to. Yeah,
Yep,
it was a great interview. Great interview.
There's a lot going on here. I feel for Meghan Markle and Prince Harry and everything that they're going through, but especially Meghan Markle, because it is kind of wild what the royal family put her through. And I think everybody should watch this. It is telling of so many things, but it's also telling of like a very particular type of like white supremacy that is championed. Like, this is the royal family, and I think it means something when they treat her the way they did. I think it's worth watching. You can watch it on CBS.com, even though you can't stream it on Paramount Plus.
Yeah. So check it out, Meghan Markle's interview with Oprah. And this is going to be there are interviews that are considered iconic or historic, and this is going to be one of those. This is going to be one of those interviews that people are still talking about decades from now. There's some canonical like Princess Diana interviews that people still talk about. This is one of those. So
I don't know how the royal family can kind of come back from this too.
I mean,
Because
people
their strategy
are
is never to
talking
confront
about
these things.
people are talking about how
Insane.
like they're gonna be. This is going to bring an end to the royal family. Like, that is what
It's
people
a
are saying.
Molotov cocktail into Buckingham Palace is what this interview was.
Yeah.
Metaphorically, but yes, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond, and certainly part of the response has already been very disheartening. So, anyway, that's the Oprah interview with Meghan Markle. Devindra, anything else you watching?
A couple of things I'll talk about. We'll be talking more about it next week. So I have seen Raya and the Last Dragon that's on Disney Plus. I paid the $30 for that. I'm very glad I did.
Guys, this is a
$30
$30 to
What?
rent this one. Yeah.
But it's not.
So-
It's not just it's not a rental that goes away in 2 days.
Yes,
It is
yes,
one of those like
permanent.
premium Disney things.
It's a
permanent.
permanent
You can
rental.
rewatch it.
Yeah.
So $30 for a new movie.
Vital for a kid's film to be
Vital
that.
for a kids film, because you will be
Yes.
watching that movie for the rest of like forever.
For the
Basically,
rest
And
of
also
the
because
your
you
kid is into
probably
it.
only going to get to watch like 15 minutes at a time. I mean, if you live in my house.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I actually saw this movie in like several minute chunks as I was trying to watch it with my daughter, and Sophia loves it. I think this movie is really good and interesting, and we'll be talking about it more next week. And I've also seen Coming to America, which was
The
fine.
sequel to Coming One America.
The sequel. Yeah, the sequel
Yeah.
to Coming One America, as it is herefore now known. Yeah, it is it's perfectly fine, but it is nowhere near as great as the first movie. And we will be talking about that in the After Dark next week. So both of those movies come back to us for it.
Yeah, next week on the /filmcast and also patreon.com/filmpodcast. Jeff Kanata, anything you've been watching?
Well, I wanted to mention one more time. I know I've talked about it a couple times on the show now, but I really love this show. I wanted to mention one more time Search Party.
Oh, Jeff, I have been catching up now because of you. And yeah,
dude,
so good. Still so good.
So good. Wife and I finally got to the end of the last season that's available. I think they got renewed for 2 more, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And Dave, you have to give the show a shot. You have to give it a try, dude.
Right.
It is
it's
kind
not
of
like-
made for you. Like it is very specific for your interests. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
really
You mean
not like anything else, man.
Dead
it is
bodies
pretty
and remains
wild.
disposal is part of it, I assume. Yeah. Anyway, okay.
Yes. Yes. It
Dude.
turns out.
Yep. Okay. All right.
It is wild. And I'm not going to say anything about the final season, but there's another show that I talked about a lot on this podcast called The Detour. And The Detour, I think all of this kind of goes back to maybe, I mean, really The Simpsons, but probably more like Arrested Development, where there's a thing that happens where like there'll be one gag that's just like a one-off joke that feels like a one-off joke, but that the show will then follow through to the most extreme ridiculous extent. Like the perfect example is Maybe, right? The character is named Maybe because of one joke in one moment in the first season, right? But it carries through the entire, like that, just to have that punchline be that her name is Maybe, we carry that through forever. And there's a lot of jokes in Arrested Development where, you know, it just kind of spins off and becomes its own thing. It gets bigger and they make the whole bigger and bigger and bigger, but it started as one little thing. The Detour is similar to that. It's a show I really love.
Sorry, you were talking about Arrested Development just now, right?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Right. The character of Maybe.
Yep.
Right. But The Detour is also similar to that, where like the premise of the show is that, you know, they're on a detour, they have to go to this other place, but then there'll be like one joke where, oh, the wife's, you know, got a twin. And then we'll do an entire season like following through on the ramifications of what that means, right? But it was really just one gag of like, it's just a throwaway gag, but then it becomes, oh, well, now we've established that as canon, and we've got to just see that through and realize what that means to our universe. That's how Search Party works. And it's brilliant, where each season is like this spiral out of control of what was a very simple moment or joke or thing. And then it's like, oh no, but the ramifications of that, if that really happened, here we go. And so you get to a point with this show where my wife and I were both like, we won't put anything past this show. Like there is nothing that they can do that we think, well, they wouldn't do it on this show, because it is so, I want to say outlandish, but it's not outlandish in the sense of not believable. It's outlandish in like the size and scale and scope of how they're willing to disrupt the status quo of their show. And that's what's so thrilling to me about the show, is that there is no status quo. Like anything can happen to any of these characters. And the pace is so fast that, you know, they'll set up something that other shows will take, you know, many episodes to follow through on. And here it's like over and done with in an episode. And it's like this crazy life-altering thing that then they carry through and they follow through on it. So the last season is so far from where we started. And you just go, I'm not going to put anything, like, is this what we're doing? Yeah, I will not put anything past the show. This may be what we're doing. And then of course it is what we're doing. It's really very cool show. Search Party. I have become such a fan, and I'm so excited that it sounds like there's at least 2 more seasons.
All right. Well, you had my curiosity, but now you have my attention, Jeff. Search Party, streaming right now on HBO Max. I will try to check out an episode or 2 this week. And what else have you been watching, Jeff? Anything else?
Well, along those lines, I didn't pull up the person's name, but thank you. I got a suggestion of somebody who said, hey, if you like Search Party, you should check out a movie on, I believe it's on Hulu, called Save Yourselves. Obviously, the connection to Search Party is that one of the main actors, John Reynolds, is also one of the main actors in Save Yourselves. It's Save Yourselves with an exclamation point at the end. Sunita Mani is also in this. I like her very much from a lot of different things. It is. Have either of you guys heard of this movie or seen it?
I think I might have seen it browsing on Hulu, but yeah, I've not seen it.
I really liked it. It is not for everybody. Very quirky, very weird. Basically, the story of this isn't really a spoiler because it says it in like the first thing. But if you don't want to know the premise, I would say it's worth watching this movie cold. So skip ahead 30 seconds if you don't want to know the premise. But the premise is these two total romantic comedy situation. This couple who just can't get off their phones decide they're going to go away on a retreat for the weekend, not bring any phones, not be connected to the internet. Maybe it's a whole week, whatever the case. They go away without any connection to the internet. And that just happens to be the week that aliens come to Earth.
Love it. Love it.
And
yeah.
It's brilliant. And like the way the aliens are portrayed in this movie is not like anything you've ever seen before. Really weird, really goofy, but super scary in a way too. It's a really strange movie, but one I enjoyed a lot. It's called Save Yourselves, and it's on Hulu.
All right. Well, that is what we have been watching this week. Why don't we get to some weekly plugs? We're going to do weekly plugs. Weekly plugs are part of the show each week where we plug something we have been creating this week, or maybe something we haven't been creating, we just like it. This week I want to recommend 2 things that I've been in real quick. First of all, recorded an episode of Culturally Relevant with @JoyOfNapping about feelings on vaccines, how we're feeling about it, because we're entering this weird phase of the pandemic now where some people are getting vaccines, some people aren't, our parents are getting vaccinated. I mean, it's possible one of you might get vaccinated before me. And if that happens...
Probably not, Dave, because I'm living in the worst, the apparently ranked, according to CDC data, the worst state when it comes to vaccine distribution. Not like the CDC is here or anything.
Well, anyway, I was gonna...
You'll get it before me, for
I was going to say, I mean, it would give me yet another reason to resent you guys. But anyway,
like you need one more of those.
There's a lot of thoughts we have and a lot of feelings, and we share them all on the latest episode of Culturally Relevant. Also, if you want to hear a 40-minute conversation about the Oprah interview, head on over to my Patreon page at patreon.com/Dave Chen, where we spoke together in the COVID bubble about our thoughts on the interview. Gotten some great feedback about that. That episode is free to the public. I put it in front of the paywall. So patreon.com/Dave Chen if you want to hear our conversation about the Oprah interview. I'm thinking of pivoting to just all royal coverage for all my stuff. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
is that a good?
smart.
Yeah, please.
I should
It's a
follow
good
it,
niche.
Right? Yeah,
Serve
okay.
that niche.
Yeah.
Hey, can I ask you
No one
only
else is,
slightly?
What's great about it, Jeff, is no one else is doing it. So
Yes, right.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Can I ask you an only slightly related question?
What's up?
In this marginally easier to imagine future that we're hopefully approaching, where COVID is in the rearview mirror a bit, have you done any thought to like what will happen to your COVID bubble? Do you think it will be less? I mean, obviously you have friends. These are friends, and they will remain friends.
It's
but
just one person, Carter. She's a friend. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a couple. I apologize.
No.
You have this bubble friend, and clearly that friendship will endure. But is there anything that will make it less than in some way? Is there something that will change about it when you're not forced to be your only group? You know, you're
Right.
I'm just curious if you've given that any thought.
First of all, I'm actually insulted that you asked that question, Jeff, because of course I would think about that type of thing. Like I would be thinking about it even before it even started, right?
Yeah,
so
right, no, right. Yeah, you're the guy who thinks about the dog dying before you get the puppy.
That's
right.
100%, 100%. So the fact that you even need to ask the question is like, wow, do you not even know me, Jeff?
This was all covered in the contract that Carter signed. Okay,
this is the contract that she signed with blood. No, I definitely have thought about it, Jeff, and I think that the COVID bubble to a large degree is about practicality, right? That it made sense for us all to live together, but I think we all understood, like, if one day we get out. I mean, when we went into this, it's like this could last for 5+ years, right? Like we had no idea how long it could last. And it's now looking like at least the impact of it will be severely mitigated. So, the impact of the pandemic will be substantially mitigated in the next few months, assuming, nothing catastrophic goes wrong. There's variants. People continue to be dumbasses. There's all these variables. But what will it feel like? I think we all understand that, like, at one point, the bubble will likely end unless, we invest in, like, a radical new way of living. And what I mean by that is, like, I have friends, Jeff, who are like friends who are older than me, who have considered like, hey, let's create a commune. Like let's have a commune where we all live, like me, like us, and then like 5 of our friends live together on this big commune. And nothing weird, nothing cult-like about it. It's just more like, hey, we want to all grow old together. We want to all like take care of each other's needs, and we enjoy spending time with each other. And so there's a possibility that we could figure out some like unconventional arrangement where like we figure out a way to live together beyond the bubble. But other than that, I do think like there is an understanding one day the bubble will end, and it will be very sad because it is something that has deeply enriched our lives. So. Those are my current thoughts on it right now.
So it's like either you become a throuple,
right.
or you said good day. I said good day.
Yeah, but there's still some time left, right? Like who knows? It's a function of like how long leases last and many other factors. So I think the bubble will last certainly until for the next few months, and most likely for the next year and a half or so. Based on like leases and stuff. So
it's going to be there's a lot of drama to be written about the COVID bubbles that break up. Like how you do that, and it's kind of hilarious.
Possibly an after dark conversation for the future. Devindra Hardwar, your weekly plug.
Oh yeah, I want to shout out the latest episode of the Engadget podcast. It's about Microsoft Mesh, which is a thing you probably didn't hear about because it was announced at one of their like developer conferences for enterprises, but it's a cool thing because they made this platform for basically VR collaborative chatting with other people, which is kind of like, it's a thing I've experimented with and I've tried it with other services, but they sent me a HoloLens 2 and I sat here at my desk. I put it on, and in my desk where I've had no other people other than my family was somebody from Microsoft and a couple other journalists, and we were all in like cartoony avatars, but the sense of space was there. Like the desk, there was a fake desk right next to my real desk.
Presence,
people were
is called
sense
in
of
VR.
Presence. People were walking around. I could actually hear like the direction people were speaking from. It did feel like, man, I would really like to do this rather than like Zoom calls all the time or something. And it could be really cool for like collaborative work. So anyway, it's this platform they made for VR, AR, smartphones, computers, pretty much every single platform, to kind of have like a single, like a Skype for the future, like a single place where all these things can jump in and have these conversations. It is pretty cool. And, we're looking at like timelines. There were stories about like the timelines for Apple's AR glasses, like potentially not until like 2025 for the like final small AR glasses that look like normal glasses. And I think that timeline makes sense. So if you're dreaming of the day when you can have like AR glasses that can do all sorts of cool stuff, this seems like something that would be really useful for that. So yeah, we're seeing it. It's cool. Check out my check out the podcast episode, and I wrote an article about this too. It's a really cool future we're getting to. It's just not here quite yet.
Kanata Jeff, your weekly plug?
I thought I'd mention my video game podcast. It's called DLC. It's every week at 5by5.tv/DLC. But I thought this week I returned to podcasting after a week off for my surgery, and I invited one of my favorite guests, Lana Bashinsky, who is a senior animator at Riot Games, but just a delightful human. And it's a great episode. If you're curious about video games, I think this is a great episode to try my podcast if you haven't before. Lana's wonderful. We get into some wonderful discussions about the games that we've been playing and some great news. Check it out, 5by5.tv/DLC.
Those are our weekly plugs for the week. Let's get to our review of WandaVision. Okay. I've stopped the recording.
Very smart. Yeah, good idea.
Joanna is joining us.
Okay.
So she'll be here momentarily.
I've heard it before.
Yeah. Can't trust her, really.
We're still broadcasting live, by the way.
I know. Cannot trust this Joanna. What does she know about podcasting? Come on.
Let's start a new recording, okay? I'm running post-production on this. I'm starting new recording now. Oh wait, whoops, wrong button.
Nope. Hello.
There we go.
Hello.
I'm starting a new recording, backup recording as well.
Are we waiting for something, or are we? I mean, is she going to be a minute?
She is loading up Chrome, so it should be any second now. Do you want to take a bio break?
Yeah.
I thought maybe I would.
Yeah, take a bio break. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. We're still broadcasting live though, so
Okay.
just
Leave your mic on.
I need a bio break too, but I got to be here to welcome Joanna to the podcast.
I think she'll get it. You should go.
Are you gonna be here?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll
you
be
stay
here.
here.
I'll be here.
Tell
Yeah,
her welcome.
just go.
And tell her
Just
we're
go.
taking a bio break. Okay.
Go. Hello, live stream. I have taken over the show. They have no clue this is happening. And shout out to everybody in the chat room. I actually have time to load up. So David Jaffe, everybody.
Okay.
Hey, Joanna.
Oh, hi.
Oh, hi.
Swiss
Everybody.
Joanna
Perfect,
Robinson.
I'm so sorry, guys. I threw on my back this morning and I tried to take a
Aw,
nap.
I'm sorry.
I
I'm
tried to take a
sorry.
nap to I was like, I'll take a nap and it'll figure itself out. And then I overslept. So I really apologize.
It's all good.
It's okay.
By the way, we are broadcasting live. We're not recording though.
Oh,
but,
hello.
but we're broadcasting live, and there's 60 people listening to us right now. So,
Hi, 60 people. Sorry to bore you with my.
I'm so sorry about that, Joanna. Well, now I feel bad to even ask you to join us in spite of that.
No, I want to talk
are you
to you
comfortable? Like, are you physically in a comfortable position?
There's some pillows involved. It's all good. We're good.
Okay, all right. Well, Jeff Canado is taking a bio break, and
Oh, is that what you guys call it? That's so fun.
Mhm.
what do you call it?
I don't know, but I think I don't usually have to talk about it live streaming to 60 people. So I probably just call it by something a little less demure than bio break.
I think bio break is great because it's evocative but not crass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. Demure. Yeah.
I miss Sagan taking a piss. Come on. Bring it back. Bring it back.
Joanna, what is your official title right now at VF?
Senior writer.
Fancy.
All right.
That's been my title for 5 years, though. So.
The fact that you're at Vanity Fair is fancy, so I'm free to say
thank
that
you.
whenever.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a while where my title was changing every year, and then I just hit senior writer, and they're like, "Yeah, it's good," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's good." I don't need. Some people have 3 adjectives on their title. I'm like, it's so unnecessary. Let's just. I will.
Yep,
sorry,
go ahead.
Oh, I will say this. It's not gossipy, but I'll say there's someone at the magazine for a while. Every time I got bumped up to their title, they would negotiate some adjective higher than me. It was like clockwork. I could see it
Love it.
happening, and they weren't aware that I could see it, and I didn't care. But it was like this like competition that only they were in with me. And so they actually
Man.
they have added a second word to this title. Once I got onto senior writer, which was where they were, they added a second word. And there we both have stayed for 5 years. So.
You know, media is a vicious business. You gotta
Can
go for
be.
the jugular. Yeah.
Can be.
Jeff Canada, you back yet? No, he's not back. The
Still in the biodome.
still taking his bio break. I read something a long time ago that really stuck with me, and it basically is the more jobs you have in
Hello.
your. Is that
Hi,
Jeff?
Jeff.
Hello.
Hey,
Hey.
Joanna.
Joanna's here.
It's been a long
Joanna's here.
time. Yeah, nice to talk to you.
Yeah.
The
Hi, you too.
more jobs you have in your Twitter bio, the more likely it is you're not employed.
Like all the
That's why I
like
did-
naming all the outlets.
Yeah,
and
That's
it'll-
funny.
Yeah,
Or not even
exactly.
outlets, just like, Dave Chen, person extraordinaire, man
CEO
about
Dave
town,
Chen
like
Co.
all these
Yeah.
things, and it's just like you don't even have a job.
Oh God, I need to
You got
check
nothing.
how busy or unbusy my Twitter.
That's
bio
more
is.
true for Clubhouse. I did the Clubhouse
Yeah,
like
yeah,
auto
yeah.
generator. It's great.
All right, let's do this thing. Here we go.
All right.
Yep. What's up, Jeff?
I want to give you a heads up that I'm gonna interrupt you pretty early. Don't get mad. Don't get mad. Don't get mad. Don't get mad.
Okay. Okay. Can I introduce Joanna? Is that okay? Before you interrupt?
Well, I feel like yes. I just didn't. I feel like it might be ruder to interrupt after you.
I see. Okay.
You know what I
I
mean?
got you. Okay.
Whatever
okay.
you think is the least rude way
Yeah,
to do
I would say before I'll do the plot summary and you can interrupt me there.
Great.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, here my backup recording is running. This is the recording of the review with Joanna Robinson, and now I am starting up the actual recording on Zencaster itself in 3, 2, 1. That was from the trailer for WandaVision, a new series that just concluded on Disney Plus. I'm going to read the
Hey
plot
Dave.
summary.
Hey Dave.
Yes,
Dave.
Jeff. Yes.
This week, I watched a TV show where an extraordinary woman falls in love with a superhero. He can fly and shoot lasers out of his head, but the thing is, he isn't human. Nevertheless, they marry and have twin boys, which is such a weird direction for a superhero show like this to take. Superheroes as parents? Anyway, enough about Lois and Superman.
Wow.
Let's review WandaVision.
Nicely done, Jeff. That's
Boom
pretty
goes
good.
the
Boom
dynamite.
goes the dynamite. Nicely done, Jeff. That warms my heart. Warms my heart that you thought of the boom, even though you were recovering from surgery this week. So
That was just for
Boom
you.
right to your
yeah,
heart.
thanks.
Yeah.
Boom. The straightest path towards my heart is through the boom. So, WandaVision plot summary: living idealized suburban lives, superpowered beings Wanda and Vision begin to suspect that everything is not as it seems. Joining us today for our review of WandaVision, she is a senior writer at Vanity Fair, and also somebody who has made podcasts with some permutation of the folks in the Slash Homecast for many hundreds of episodes. Joanna Robinson, welcome back to the podcast.
Hello, what a pleasure. Thanks. I feel like I've landed. I've like touched my boots down, turned myself into like a 1950s housewife with a house plant, and sashayed up to your door for this episode. So
Excellent.
thanks for having me.
Love
It's
it.
Nice.
It's so great to have you on the show. Now,
It was Joanna all along.
Jeff, how are you pronouncing Joanna? Because I'm hearing
I said
you
it wrong.
He's
It
going
sounds
for
like you're saying
Agatha.
Joanna.
I thought
you
he
were
was
going
trying
for-
to
Yeah.
Agatha. Yeah.
I was trying to do
Yeah.
an Agatha thing, but
I see.
I realized it was more just sounded like I didn't know who I was talking to.
So it goes without saying that we're going to be talking about WandaVision season 1, aka likely the only season. It's probably a mini series at this point.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we'll be spoiling the entire thing. So if you don't want spoilers for the show, you should not stick around. And I wanted to start by sort of talking about, before we get to the finale and reviewing the finale and thoughts on how everything wrapped up, kind of our overall experience of the show. Joanna Robinson, this is a show that has really leaned into Joanna Robinson's strengths, which is to say, really astute theorizing, world building, things of that nature. We've certainly made podcasts along those lines in the past, and you are one of the people that's best at it. So given that it is, in my opinion, Joanna Robinson catnip, Curious if you actually ended up enjoying the show. What do you think overall of WandaVision?
Oh yeah, I really loved it. Definitely catnip for me. Pretty theory proof, actually. As opposed to some of the other shows that we've covered before.
Define
Um,
theory proof, please.
Laying some breadcrumbs that went nowhere, which is fine. I'm not mad about it at all, honestly, except for one thing. But so I think no one really quite fully cracked it, which is, it's a tough. That's a nearly impossible feat in this age of like Reddit detectives and stuff like that. But yeah, I had a ball. I was doing a podcast called Still Watching for my outlet Vanity Fair, where we got to talk to like cast and crew, and then every week, my co-host Richard Lawson, Anthony Brezikin, and I just sort of went off on just imagining ideas of what might be. And like Dave, you and I have talked about fan theories before, as they pertain to Westworld. As they pertain to some of the messier final seasons of Game of Thrones. And I used to be, I think, a lot saltier about fan theories than I am now. And now I'm just sort of like I've landed in this space where I call it what is it, speculation without expectation, right? Like if you just like let yourself have a ball imagining various scenarios, trying to connect the dots, trying to figure out what's going on, but you're not intent on like solving or beating the show, because when you're like so invested in beating the show, then like the show winds up beating you and you get mad, and so it's just sort of like, just have fun, get weird, and then if it goes a different way, be really open to that being, the way that these creatives plan their story to go all along, and you were way off base. So like I said, other than one small thing in the finale, which we will talk about, or actually kind of a big thing, I'm not salty about anything, and I had a blast.
Well, I think in the past, it's been rare where you've had a fan theory that didn't work out. First of all, it's been rare that you've had a fan theory that wasn't true, but then it's been rare that you've been upset about it. So I think what you're saying really is, in the past, you've seen speculation run wild in ways that don't feel like they honor or understand the show, right? And that's really what's bothered you. It's not your own fan theorizing. It's kind of like
no, yeah.
Sansa Stark is pregnant, like that kind of stuff. That's like kind of like, really? Do you understand what the show is? Yeah.
I think I used to get, that one made me really mad. I think I used to get embarrassed. Like I would lay out this whole, my most famous one I think is like when I decided that Jon Snow was going to come back with a wolf brain on Game of Thrones. And I had you guys, I had
like
so
in
much
his
evidence.
Pocket?
like he was gonna come back kind of feral. Like I don't know if you watch Buffy, but like Angel does that in season 3. Like he came back wrong. Like that there should be like some sort of cause to death. But instead the show is just like, well, he died. That was a thing that happened, but it doesn't really have a bearing on his character at all. Yeah, exactly. His hair got shorter by an inch or two, but that's okay. So I'm kind of I was really embarrassed because I was so sure I was right. I took like a large, lengthy swing on vanityfair.com talking about it, and then I was just so wrong, and people gave me hell about that for years, and I was just mortified. And now I'm just sort of like, whatever, who cares, man? It's fun.
It's just a TV show. We're all having fun here. Are we having fun yet?
Exactly.
So well, I'm glad that you are in a good place with the fan theorizing, your own or those of others. So that's great, and I'm glad you had a great time with the show. Devendra Hardor, overall thoughts on WandaVision?
Oh yeah, really, really dug it. And I think not because like I was not expecting this show to really be super revelatory or super surprising, really. Like I think with the first 2 episodes we saw, everyone's like, this is some sort of weird, extension of her grief over Vision, right? And that's what all this is. And the question is like, how does this work? Right. And the show did a great job of kind of laying that out and kind of introducing more things. And I figure we're full spoilers at this point, right?
Yeah, let's do full spoilers.
Let's just go.
But I was kind of starting with like overall thoughts before we get to like some of the revelations. Yeah.
But yeah, like I feel like it was really strong at many points, and like it did a great job of kind of swerving us in some ways that I found really fun. We've talked about like, oh man, what could this mean for X-Men and Marvel? And maybe the Quicksilver stuff isn't what we think it would could really be, but the show still actually does open the door to several Marvel characters, including Scarlet Witch herself. So things like that, I think are pretty important and pretty like revelatory and interesting. And the finale, I could see a lot of people were just disappointed with kind of how it went. But I don't know. I feel like I've got more to say about how it all kind of ends up. But I was really satisfied with this as like a season of television.
All right, Jeff Kanata, your thoughts on WandaVision?
Well, Dave, I guess you could say my thoughts on WandaVision are best summed up in the form of a limerick.
A boom and a limerick, Jeff. This is truly an embarrassment of riches.
I got news for you, Dave. There's 2 limericks.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
The bad news is there's 2 because the second one was really just not good enough. But I'm still going to say it. I'm still going to say it because I have the second.
There's
All
no
right, so here's the first one.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Here we go. I never thought it would be true that the sitcom connective tissue would work so well that they could tell the best love story in the MCU.
That's pretty good, Jeff. Not bad.
Thanks.
Not bad. Is that the bad one?
No, that's the makeup for the here's the bad one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This show sits at the collision of movies and television. Some people might scoff, but they pulled it off. You wonder how they have such vision.
I really liked it. I think they're both great.
I like the swing.
Yeah, I mean, that one is
swing.
also good. It also makes me want to murder you, though. But I mean, but aside from that, it's good. Also,
See,
I just have to
because
say,
they Wanda. See, because the show's title is, and its 2 main characters are.
What?
Yeah.
I have to say, a huge part of the pleasure of the limericks, of which there are many pleasures, is when you use a word in the first line, and I know what the last word is going to be, right? And it's it's just a question of how you're going to get there. Very much like this show. Anyway, go ahead.
I rhymed television with vision.
Vision.
See,
very Eminem.
They rhyme. Those rhyme.
You're like in a film Eminem, Jeff.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think of the show, Jeff?
Well, as you know, I'm a Marvel zombie from way back, and this was just wonderful to me. I loved it from the word go.
Mm-hmm.
I think, honestly, I was trying to rank it. I think it is among my, top 10 MCU things. I think it's probably closer to I don't think it's in the top 5, but man, it's close, of just like general MCU things. It is that good. I think it is that different and fun. It's so fun. It's having a blast. The actors seem to be having a blast. All of the wonderful inside joke references to TV tropes and decades of television that were done so well. All the different intros that they did to the WandaVision series that were clear homages to specific television shows, The Office and all of them, all of them.
The Dick Van Dyke Show, Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah, exactly. Malcolm in the Middle is what I couldn't think of.
Yeah.
It's great. And that stuff was all so fun. The thing that's so mind-blowing to me about this is I don't know of anybody that's attempted to do a movie and a television show at the same time, right?
Right.
It's awesome how they pulled that off. It's such a novel idea. It's like, okay, the first of these Disney Plus Marvel Cinematic Universe TV shows is not just going to prove that we can do TV shows on the movie scale. It's going to actually justify the idea of doing it as a TV show is the best way to do this. Like, it wasn't just that we broke up a long movie into multiple episodes. The format of episodic television was essential to telling this particular story in this particular way.
It's absolutely in love with the idea of TV and how we consume TV and how it like sticks with us. So yeah, absolutely.
It couldn't have possibly been told in any other format as well. And to be like, well, not only are we doing TV, but we're like showing you why we had to do TV now is pretty wild. I loved all of the world building it does. I love that it retroactively makes sort of not as good MCU movies a little bit better. I'm shocked that it's able to do that. You know, the turn Age of Ultron, make it a little bit better of a movie retroactively. I love how it manages to flesh out a very underwritten love story, right? In the context of the Avengers movies and ancillary movies, you're basically just told that Wanda and Vision fall in love. There's very, very little actual screen time given to them falling in love. And then you have this exquisite expression of their, not just their love now, which is beautifully expressed, but the moments that they fell in love. We actually get to flash back and see that in a really clever, unconventional way. But it is such a home run on so many levels, and it's having so much fun. It is, you know, we get new care. We get this new Captain Marvel that clearly seems to have a bigger role in the MCU upcoming. We get a new great villain that's going to clearly have a bigger role in the MCU upcoming. It's so satisfying, and I loved the fact that we got to big superhero fights in the sky. You know, like we did that on TV with this show. This is it was so much fun. It did so many different things. It didn't overstay its welcome. I just thought it was a home run. I loved it.
All right, Joanna Robinson, let's talk about the finale of the show.
Yeah.
There are some things that you were probably expecting, you were thinking might happen, but overall, like, what were some things in the finale you felt like, man, they really hit that well? Like, they really hit that beat really well. What were some things you felt missed in terms of finale?
Yeah, you know, I've been checking out some interviews with the behind the scenes is that the interview cycle for these shows, these Marvel Disney Plus shows, are for the most part, talent is not allowed to talk to reporters until the Monday after the episode airs on Thursday midnight the week before, right? And then those interviews are often not allowed to run until the Tuesday. So we're about to get a lot more information. We got two big interviews today. One Matt Shackman did with the Fat Man Beyond podcast with Kevin Smith, Mark Bernardin, and one that Jack Schaefer did with Dave Iskoff at the New York Times. And so those were both had some revelations in them about the finale, but we're about to get a whole bunch more starting, I would say, tomorrow. We're gonna need a lot of info. But some of the things that we learned was that due to COVID, you know, COVID definitely impacted the finale. And one of the ways it impacted the finale is that it may or may not have impacted their ability to have fully formed stuff for Darcy and Monica and Jimmy to do, so that their intention, they you know, Matt Shackman described, and I talked to Jack Schaefer today for our podcast, it's going to run later in the week. They had this whole sequence with Monica and Darcy and the boys and Ralph, and the Senior Scratchy was going to turn into a demon, and it was like this whole big thing that they were going to do. And but because they couldn't do that, they actually shot it, but because they couldn't get the VFX going or whatever, or story wise it wasn't working, they cut that. And as a result, like some of those side characters who are, yes, side, like I wanted them to be secondary to what was happening with WandaVision. That's the most important thing, right? But they felt a little like too much and not enough. You know, if they're going to be there, have them do something rather than like have Kat Dennings say 4 words and then not be there for the reshoots of the wrap up of the episode or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So that stuff we can blame on COVID to a certain degree. And then the Evan Peters stuff, I know you asked me to start with the stuff I liked, and I swear there is stuff I liked, but the Evan Peters Ralph reveal, that's the only thing that I'm just sort of like, guys, I don't think you nailed it, honestly. Like, yeah. I'm not mad about a misdirect, but the misdirect needed to land somewhere a little bit more interesting than like a boner joke.
Well, they made a boner joke, so it was worth it.
Sure. And like you know, Jeff mentions like flying around the sky, classic MCU villain fight stuff, and that stuff, it looked pretty good. Like, it's fun, but for me in the finale, what worked really, really well was the really smaller character driven moments. So basically like Wanda and Vision tucking their kids in, and Wanda and Vision saying goodbye, like that for me. And some of the Agatha and Wanda stuff, the line that Agatha has of like, you know, there will always be pitchforks and torches for women like us, Wanda, like stuff like that. You know, maybe I don't need them to be said while the two actresses are in like wire harnesses or something like that, but like, but the goodbye stuff at the home was just achingly beautiful, I thought.
So powerful.
And that's what I really wanted from the finale, which I knew was going to be action heavy because they kept saying like it'll all end in something that'll look familiar to MCU fans, and I was like, I know what that means. But that they made the space. Essentially, what WandaVision is, as Jeff was alluding to, what WandaVision is more space for Wanda's story, which had to be a bit of a footnote in Infinity War and Endgame. And so I saw some people kind of salty like, oh, we have to see Vision die again for the third time, like we've already seen him die twice on film.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, but that was just like in the middle of all this other, you had to keep cutting away to like the Hulkbuster armor or something like that. Like this is just like, let's give them this beat and really let that the tragedy of this for Wanda after all she's already lost.
And I love how they made the whole bigger there too, where that became the point, like him saying, I've done this a couple of times and I keep coming back. So we have to surmise that if I say goodbye, I'll say hello again. I thought that was all so earned, and I thought it turned that maybe that flaw into something actually kind of poetic.
Yeah, kind of lampshading it in a really beautiful way. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad the finale landed. I'm gonna share some of my thoughts. I guess it's gonna be a 1v3 situation here.
Here come the salt mines.
Okay, overall, I really enjoyed the experience of watching the show. So, like, I'm just gonna start from there. We all have that in common, guys. We all have that in common. Okay. This is a show like literally. My routine is I would wake up at dawn on Friday, like 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. And I would watch. The first thing I'd do is watch WandaVision. And
what a cool thing!
I just got this joy. I got a lot of joy from the Marvel Studios logo. I'd always get a little thrill, seeing that Marvel Studios logo, and they have this really cool music cue that they play with it now, and I'm like, oh man,
it's 30 seconds of joy. Yeah,
and it reminds me of a time when we used to go to theaters and stuff. And there's always like this speculation stuff going on online, and I have to say, Joanna, I'm kind of in your boat in terms of like, hey, I'm enjoying this now. I'm having fun with all the speculation because I have no expectation. Like, this is a show barely was on my radar. I'm enjoying it now, so like it's all just gravy at this point. I don't have any expectations. So overall, enjoy the show. Think it's worth watching. But
yeah,
I think it's at its most interesting when it's covering the things that you described, the character things that all of you have described. Specifically, John Robinson talking about Wanda saying goodbye to Vision and her kids last episode. Like, very touching, very beautiful. I was even okay with the backdoor pilot of going back and seeing like all the different experiences Wanda had that led her up to this point, filling in some details for the MCU, and explaining exactly how we got to this point at the first episode of WandaVision. And the idea that this is a manifestation of grief, right? Like, what if you were grieving, but you were also a superhero capable of feats that were barely comprehensible to most humans? Like, what would that look like? And this kind of shows you one version of that. I think that's very interesting to think of, like, how does WandaVision, like, how does the town of Westview represent grief in the sense that, like, when one is grieving, especially given the last year, like, grieving is a very relevant topic. How does that impact those around you, right? Is it a burden on them as well when you're grieving? And what's up with that? And I think at its best, the show made me think and reflect on those things and explore those things in really compelling fashion. But then you have all this other stuff that just isn't very good in the finale, I think. I thought, like, Agatha, while Kathryn Hahn is a treasure and she was wonderful in most of the series, thought she was like pretty wasted at the end. Like, I just didn't think that the journey that character ends up taking is particularly interesting. I think there were a lot of head fakes, and I'm not mad. I think I'm not like, how dare they head fake me, but I feel like the number of head fakes they had, like the thing with Evan Peters, which we talked about on this podcast a few weeks ago, right? Is, okay, you can have the guy who played Quicksilver in the X-Men movies, but then also, like, you've told us that Wanda is going to be a big part in Multiverse of Madness. And also,
Yeah.
by the way, we've hired, Alfred Molina for Spider-Man 3, and also like all these other things that kind of point to this kind of multiverse plot happening. And I can't deny, it does feel like a bit of a letdown, the whole Quicksilver thing.
I mean, that may not necessarily be the end of it.
That's how I feel.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. This is comic world. Yeah.
I think it is. I mean, unless they do like, it was never their intent. My understanding is it was never their intention to like sort of double, triple layer. But to Jeff's point, it's so funny. Sorry, Dave, is it okay that I'm?
Yeah, please go ahead.
To Jeff's point that he said earlier, he sort of landed upon one of my favorite theses of Kevin Feige's era of Marvel Studios, like Kevin Feige fully in control of Marvel Studios, and it has to do with something that Kevin actually I did this story for Vanity Fair where I got to like sit down and talk with Kevin for a couple hours, and one of my favorite things that he told me, and this is I don't think it made it into the final story, but one of my favorite things
exclusive content on the Slash Filmcast. All right.
In exchange, I will say I'm writing a book about Marvel Studios, so watch this spot. But that what he used to do as a kid is he would go to a movie, he would go see, like, let's say he loved RoboCop, and then he'd go see RoboCop 2 and he hated RoboCop 2. So he would go home and he would go in the backyard, take his action figures, and figure out how to fix RoboCop 2, how to make RoboCop 2 better. That story to me is like all of what Kevin Feige has been doing. I can fix Spider-Man.
Sure.
I can even fix my own mistakes. I can fix Thor: The Dark World. I'll put it in Endgame. I can fix Ultron. I'm gonna build this whole WandaVision like film around it that's gonna make Ultron this beautiful like meet cute between these two like lovers that you're gonna fall in love with. And so look for that always. Look for, and not just I can fix the Fantastic Four. I can fix the mutants. I can do whatever like that's and it's not born out of ego. That's not really who Kevin Feige is. It's born out of just like a conviction backed up by an incredible track record that he has the right instinct about how to tell these stories.
So I think you're saying
that's not to contradict your point about the finale. I agree with you, Dave. Like a lot of the zooming around in the sky, I was like, if this were just like, if they just stepped into a different plane of existence and it was just the two of them talking, Catherine Hahn and Elizabeth Olsen talking quietly in the room, that's what I want. And I really understand that that's not what most people want from Marvel, but that's what I want. So.
I think it would be, go ahead.
And I think they kind of try to do that with the Double Vision scene.
Yes,
they're floating in midair, but really it was just two men in a library talking about the ship of Theseus. So,
Pretty rad sequence, by the way. Pretty rad exchange, I thought.
I think it's great. So I actually really enjoyed that as well because I think we've seen scenes of two superheroes fighting each other a lot, right? I mean, it was done in
especially like the evil version of said superhero.
Matrix Revolutions, great example of just like two CGI dudes like floating around the sky punching each other for a really long time, and it's like we've already seen that, and I'm like, how are they going to resolve this in a way that's interesting? And I thought the solution they arrived on was not only interesting but also cost efficient. So you don't need to burn up a lot
for budget.
Yeah, extra points for budget. You don't need to burn up a lot of CG budget there. But I think it's highly. You're right. It's possible, Jeff. It's possible. I think it's highly unlikely because they show what's her name, Agnes, saying like, "Hey, it took me like 50 years to turn this bird into a thing," and so the idea that she could pluck people out of another universe, I think, is like beggars belief, in my opinion. Plus, like everything we see,
the entire show, it was the whole point is that she is so powerful. She is so much more powerful than Agatha. Like that is the thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But Agatha is the one responsible for Evan Peters showing up. So
to say that they can't retcon that in some clever way, I think is to underestimate what you're talking about. I mean,
it's also
it's a dangling potential is what they've left themselves with. They don't ever have to follow up on it, but they certainly could.
I would
and
describe
there's several. And sorry, go ahead, Dave.
I would describe it as a mostly closed book. Is how I would describe it. Not dangling potential. It's like the book is almost. It's not quite closed, but it's mostly closed. Anyway, go ahead, Joanna.
Well, there's more dangling potential in Agatha being tucked away in Westview, right? Or White Vision zooming off into outer space.
Right. Where did he go?
Those are clear setups.
Right.
Those are both clear setups, I think. And
or the post-credit scene too. Like,
Catherine Hahn did tell me that like she, and maybe she's lying because that's what they have to do, right? But she's like I was like, oh, so did they tell you they're gonna hit like Apple S on your on your character and bring you back for future? And she's like, absolutely not. And she's like, no, 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 it's just sort of her punishment. And I was like, yeah, I don't believe you, but okay.
Just there are a couple of things we have to talk about.
She name checks the Sorcerer Supreme. I can't imagine that we're not going to hear something about that in the next. Anyway, go ahead.
For sure.
No, it all connects for sure. But there are a couple things that came to mind. Was Agatha that bad? Like, was Agatha that bad that she had to basically be trapped in this in that prison of being in that suburban town and kind of losing her agency in her mind? Because she, without her, I don't think Wanda ever really would have understood these powers that have been underlining, her entire life. And also,
yeah. Go ahead.
I just need to add to that. Wanda sucks. Everybody, Wanda sucks. How many times has like the fate of the world kind of been determined by Wanda's actions and her kind of screwing up and losing her powers? I get it too, like with the last few movies, but also this time she imprisoned an entire town and she walks out and doesn't even apologize to all of these people she's enslaved. She just walks out and then flies away.
I have a quick question for you. This is inspired by my friend Dave Gonzalez, who knows Marvel so much better than I do. Do you think Tony Stark sucks in the end of Endgame?
Yes.
Okay.
He always sucked.
Tony Stark makes this decision that they're not going to like spool back time because then his daughter doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
So like everyone has to endure the trauma of the snap so that Tony Stark's daughter can live. Well, and this is I think a similar decision that Wanda is making here, that like all these people she's choosing not to see the damage she's causing in order to have like Vision back.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I have many thoughts on that, Joanna Robinson. But I'll share just two, maybe three. One is I think Endgame, to be honest, I've watched it again recently. I love the movie. I really enjoy it. But I also think the message is incredibly fucked up. Like, the message of Endgame is don't let go of things. Like, if you lost, like, don't let go of it. Endgame is a fantasy for what if we never have to lose, right? What if we can always win somehow? And they don't cope with loss. It's in the trailer. He's like, everyone's moved on, but not us. Like, that's literally, and then they get rewarded for that mentality. I'm glad the Marvel Cinematic Universe is finally starting to confront some of the horrors of that decision, which you see in the brilliant opening of, I think, episode 4, 3, one of those episodes.
4.
So I think Endgame as a whole, is the morality of Endgame is pretty jacked up to begin with. It's less about Tony Stark for me and more about the entire story. But also Tony Stark's kind of actions, I would say, were not necessarily a net negative. And in this situation, you have Scarlet Witch going in, or whatever you want to call her, going in, and she kind of mind controls these people. And sure, their lives kind of sucked before,
but they're being tortured. They are screaming to be free and to go see their loved ones. Like, who knows who is like being affected because they cannot reach their family members right now. Yeah,
I think the way that this finale handled Wanda and what she did was pretty bad. Like the way that it framed her actions as being a you gave up your imaginary friends, and now people will never know your sacrifice. Like framed it as like this noble sacrifice, I thought was pretty rough. But I'm curious what Joanna and Jeff think about that. Joanna, what are your thoughts?
Because I keep like trying to interrupt you. Sorry. Okay.
No, please.
Well, let me zoom back really quickly. This is related to the Evan Peters thing, which is to say their explanation of the Evan Peters thing is that, and then I just don't think they really, really fully landed it, but they're saying what lengths will go to accept a reality that, like the fact that if this guy had shown up and he looked like Aaron Taylor Johnson, we've been like, oh, here's another resurrected, another zombified, like loved one of Wanda's. But this guy shows up who doesn't really look anything like her brother, and she's like, Pietro? And Matt Shackman was saying like, these are the lengths we'll go to convince ourselves of a reality that we want. Like I said, I don't think it fully hangs together, but that was sort of an idea that they had. The other thing,
can I just digress just 1 second?
Yes,
is that
of course.
The movie The Imposter, this documentary called The Imposter that I think does a really good job of illustrating that concept.
Yeah.
So watch The Imposter. It's a brilliant film. Okay, go ahead, Joanna.
Well, and the other thing, and I don't mean to keep like spoiling my own interview with Jack Schaefer, which will run later this week, but she was saying when I was asked, she gave this great quote a couple years ago in an interview where she talked about how she wasn't interested in black and white villains, she was interested in shades of gray. So I was asking her like how she thought Agatha sort of fulfilled that brief in the show, and then she's like, actually, I think of that more as it applies to Wanda. Like I think of Wanda in a shade of gray. So I think. But so I think that the showrunner of the show is not thinking of Wanda as an all-conquering hero as she walks out of this town, and Wanda herself like slinks out of town. You know what I mean? I do think a mistake they made.
She kind of walks through amidst everybody. She's like she had many opportunities.
She didn't
to
have
be
to
like,
take
hey guys,
that path.
sorry.
She could have just
Yeah.
like
She
texted.
put
Monica.
her hood up. She put her hood up.
I'm with Jeff. She put her hood up. She's slinking. She's slinking.
She's
She could've
slinking
taken a back
incredibly
road.
conspicuously, but she's slinking.
Yeah,
Okay,
she
all
should have
right.
taken a back road, but
Yep.
they wanted to show everyone glaring at her so
Yep.
that it wasn't like a whatever. I think the main mistake they made, and I am curious to hear what Jeff thinks, but I think the main mistake they made was having Monica, who is sort of like this voice of morality in the show, condone it. I think if Monica had been like,
you're free to go.
Yeah, if Monica had been like, that was a little fucked up. I get it. But grief.
Yeah.
But that was a little fucked up, but maybe you should go to a cabin somewhere and drink some tea and study up or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that her approval, I think
that's what
puts a
really
finger
rubbed
on
me
the
the wrong
scale a
way.
little
Yeah,
bit.
like
Yeah.
if that had not been in there and then she had just left, I would be completely fine. But like that last scene, it really was like, ugh. Okay, Jeff, your thoughts?
I have so many. I will say, from a comic book perspective, both Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver have always been sort of chaotic good, and I think that plays out here. I think that it's sort of true to that mentality. I mean, they are Magneto's children, and there was always sort of this potential of evil in both of them. I mean, Quicksilver has a history of being kind of undermining and not always playing with the rest of the team in the comics as well. And so I kind of like the fact that she's not a squeaky clean hero at the end. She does have some culpability and some, not blood on her hands, but some dirt on her hands, certainly, from messing with people's minds. And I don't know. I think that's a more interesting tale. I think it's a more interesting, like Jonah was saying, the shades of gray, I think are much more fascinating to me as a viewer as well. Another thing I wanted to bring up, Dave, that I thought was funny is, you always rail against Blue Beam in Sky. And I was thinking at one point, there's that sequence with the Coven of Witches back in Salem.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's Blue Beamin' Guy. It's not Blue Beamin' Sky. It's Blue Beamin' Guy.
You're on fire tonight, Jeff.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You're on fire. Okay.
What happens when you give me a week off, baby?
Let me ask you guys a question. What's the bad guy's name? Tyler, the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., right?
Hayward.
Tyler
Head
Hayward.
of Sword.
Head of Sword, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
What was he arrested for at the end? What do you think he was arrested for?
Just
being a real
Wanda's
dick.
way.
Because there's this town of people imprisoned by this superhuman being, and he did everything he can to both free them and repossess military materials.
He was being a real dick. You see what he did to Jimmy? He threw him in some hay.
Endangering something, sending an untested, sentient weapon into the hex.
Yeah, we've never done that before.
Where there are innocent lives.
I was a little
I don't
bummed.
think. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was a little bummed that they made him so mustache twirly at the end because I thought,
evil. Cartoonishly
yeah,
evil,
I thought it was actually cool that the whole sequence where he brings Wanda in and shows her vision deconstructed on the. I thought he was being very reasonable. He's like, listen,
but I
we
thought
can't. We
I thought
can't
he
let
was
you leave with
manipulating
him.
her.
He costs. It costs a whole lot of money. That is a very even if we wanted to let you leave with him, it's very expensive, that vibranium. And I don't know. I like Thanos is a great example of this. I like when you can sort of see the logic of the villain. You can go, well, it's fucked up and villainous, but also I kind of get how you could have that mentality. And
my job is for you not to take this. that's not, my fault. It's my job.
But I
Well,
don't think that's what he was trying to do in that scene. My interpretation of that scene is he was trying to goad her
Yes.
into juicing Vision up for them.
100%.
He's like, you can't take
Sure,
this
sure.
and bury it, but you can bring him back. Only you could do it, Wanda.
Well,
Like,
it's more like
and
if
he
it was
really
me, if it was up to,
Yeah.
if I had the power, I mean, I would bring him back. But like, I'm not you, so like,
Yeah.
it's totally up to you. But
Mhm.
I'm not you, Yeah.
But I would agree with Jeff. There's a different scene actually where I think there's potential there where he's in one of the various sword tent brief scenes where he's talking to Monica about the snap, and he's like, you weren't there, you don't know what it was like we saw half the as Dave said, this is like the MCU having to grapple with like what actually happened, whereas Spider-Man Far From Home was sort of like la 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 la,
It's hilarious.
snap.
Hilarious.
The thing that's so fascinating is this takes place so long before Spider-Man Far From
like
Home.
eight months or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. But so that was their way to be like to do a fun hijinky high school film
Right.
and not have to like grapple with the trauma that Peter and all of his
Yeah.
friends
Yes.
like
Yeah.
are still in high school and everyone else
Yeah.
is gone. Anyway,
If you thought COVID was bad, imagine if
Right.
half of everybody just vanished.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Hayward was talking about like, so it comes from a place of for him of fear, you know what I mean? And like he needs this Project Cataract to happen. It felt like a very like post 9/11 overreaction Homeland Security sort of thing. Like we need to be protected so this never happens to us again. And that I think was real potential for exactly what you guys are talking about, which is like you don't need him to twirl a mustache.
Well,
Let's give him something
Yeah,
reasonable.
agreed.
The bridge
Agreed.
too far moment was when he literally fired a weapon at two young boys. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't
That's
care
what he's
how
being
much.
arrested for.
Yeah, well, yeah, there you
They're
go.
imaginary boys, though. That's the thing.
But
They're imaginary
You
boys.
don't know that, I mean, he didn't know that. Either way, if I see a boy that may or may not be imaginary, I'm not discharging my sidearm toward their face,
I also think the idea of like Monica being basically bulletproof, like this black woman stepping in the way of these bullets, but from a law enforcement officer, is just very loaded imagery. And I just don't think the show. I think the show was punching too far above its weight class to really make good use of it, in my opinion.
That's another thing.
But
So
yeah, go ahead.
someone who's really smart about making television was talking to me about the moment, a wasted opportunity they saw in the moment where Monica, other than like her, basically like the only black person we see in this neighborhood, getting ejected by Wanda, who says like you don't belong here,
Right.
and
Yep.
just that there was like potential to do something just like a little bit more interesting
Yes.
than what they wound up doing with that. But again, I think they were.
I mean, she's not the only black person though. There was that neighbor guy too. Just
Yeah, that's what I
yeah.
said.
pointing
Other
out.
than her.
Oh,
other than
sorry,
her.
yes.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So just that idea that it could have been that kind of interesting moment, But like overall, I'm with Jeff and Devindra, and Dave is all alone. His self Dave
Thanks.
digging mine insults.
Thanks, Joanna. Thanks. That's very lovely. I mean, so yeah, I think that the stuff with Tyler Hayward and the stuff with Agatha was kind of a waste, but it was worth going on this is like Thor going into the lake of fire or whatever the hell in Thor: The Dark World all over again. Wait, what was the one where he went into he saw the vision of Ragnarok? Was it maybe it was Age of
Ultron.
Ultron? It was Ultron, right?
Yeah.
Shitty
Yeah.
part
Yeah.
of Ultron.
Right.
Yeah.
This is like I feel like the Tyler Hayward and to some extent Monica Rambeau and Agatha Harkness parts of this show were like the shitty parts of Ultron.
Well, it's weird how Monica got powers and they're like, I guess I got powers now. We're not gonna interrogate this at all.
No need to.
I know exactly
will
how all this
be-
works. Yeah.
We will be interrogating this further in Captain Marvel 2.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I think that
Stay
there's all
tuned.
the stuff that wasn't that I really, really enjoyed and admired and appreciated. Like all the WandaVision stuff I thought was great. And just like a great use of the form, like a great use of, hey, we have a TV show, and Jeff well put about like this is a story that had to be told this way because
Yeah.
it wouldn't make sense to watch this as a film, or not it wouldn't make sense, but it would lessen it to watch it as a film, and to see it unfold week by week, it was really fun, and I had a great time with it. I just thought like a few things. I wouldn't say it didn't stick the landing. I'd say it mildly stuck the landing. I guess is how I feel about it. But anyway, John Robinson, any final thoughts as we wrap
You're
this up?
saying it's like one of those gymnasts who's had like a really good bar routine and then like does a little flip off and then there's just like a little
Like stumbles,
stumble,
little stumble.
You're
At the
saying
And
end.
it's
then
like
and then the arm goes up in the air. and
Yes.
It's
you're
like little Carrie
"Yay!"
Strug, like little Carrie Strug on one leg. She
Yes.
landed on one leg.
That's 100%, 100%. That is exactly the mental image I had, Jeff. So wasn't a total loss. It wasn't bad. It's just like, it really could have ended a little bit better. Anyway, Joanna Robinson, closing thoughts.
Well, one of the reasons that I think Ultron, and this is related, I promise. One of the reasons I think Ultron was a big failure for me in the MCU was the to watch it struggle under the weight of trying to set up so many things. Right, Thor goes into that frickin' cave pond because they need to they were trying to set up Thor Ragnarok and stuff like that, and it makes no sense. And it ruins the movie and a bunch of other things. They're just trying to they were trying to plant their seeds for their offshoots, right? And you could see the seeds that they're planting in the show for their offshoots. They're Doctor Strange and in the Multiverse of Madness offshoot. They're Captain Marvel 2 offshoot and stuff like that. They need to lift those. I think there are some ways in which it's just storytelling unlike we've ever seen, right? Because unless you're a comics fan, because this happens a lot in comics, there'll be like a miniseries run, and like if you read House of M, which I did before the show started, and I was like, well, that was good, and that's it. And someone was like, no, the House of M storyline just keeps crescendoing out from here. And I was like, okay, but if I go on my Comixology, this is what they're calling House of M, and they're like, yeah, it's comics, it's complicated to read. I was like, okay. So this
it's continuity is what it is.
But what these Disney Plus shows give Marvel as an opportunity to tell these this is basically an expanded 6-hour origin story for the Scarlet Witch, right? And so it gives them this opportunity to tell these more slow rolling stories, but what it also gives them is a bunch more plates to spin. And so I'm ever vigilant. I mean, there's no reason to not trust in Feige and his team and Marvel after everything they've done, but I'm forever vigilant to be like, okay, you guys used to have a complicated enough job trying to make all of these movies flow. Now you got to make all these shows flow too, and that's tricky. And when we're watching something like WandaVision and we're invested in this, and the show sucked in a lot of people who weren't Marvel fans. I've talked to so many people who this is their first Marvel thing they ever watched, which is wild and fun and great. Welcome to the party, pal. But then they're like, wait, I gotta watch a movie now to find out what happens to Wanda. This isn't this episode's called series finale, but it's definitely not the end of this story. And I'm like, that's how it works. So it's we're not used to this. Agents of Shield tried it and it really spectacularly backfired, but we're not used to this sort of interconnected movie TV storytelling that they're about to soar off into the blue yonder with. So
well, it's cool that they're treating these as sort of one-off longer movies, really, event TV shows. I think that helps instead of having this endless Agents of Shield seriesification, where it's like, no, and when are these going to air, and how is it going to link in, and what has happened in the big screen? To all those complications, I think, are out off their plate. But 2 things I want to say. First of all, is how amazing is it that a previously on a TV show has footage from the highest grossing movie of all time. That is a previously on a TV show.
You texted us this, Jeff, and you were really excited, and I don't want to yuck your yum. At the same time, I also think it's a horrifying sign of the media consolidation that is to come.
Absolute
I find it actually quite chilling and mildly upsetting, so I don't share your enthusiasm at all. But continue.
Dave Chen, I don't share your enthusiasm at all.
But
T-shirts coming soon.
But continue, Jeff.
The other thing that I find so frankly inspiring about what Feige and his team are doing is that, and we've talked about this a lot, about how they spend their capital, right? They spend the capital they've earned on success in daring and interesting ways. And one of those is you have these characters that are tentpole Marvel characters, Iron Man, Captain America, and you have the guts to go, okay, we're not just going to recast younger people in those parts. We're not going to come up with some weird way to keep the treadmill rolling and have a new Superman movie and a new Batman movie no, we're going to set these characters aside. They're done. I'm confident we're going to find new people using the shield and new people using the armor as the comic books have done. But for now, these characters are done. And we are going to focus on other characters. We're going to build up and spend our capital on these other interesting characters and realizing that the universe, if we invest in it, if we maintain this continuity, if you maintain the fact that Chris Evans is the only guy playing Captain America right now, that it actually does feel more cohesive. It actually does make people more invested. And then you go, oh yeah, no, it's cool. Captain Marvel is an awesome top tier character. Oh my gosh, I'm so curious about this Scarlet Witch person and this Doctor Strange and all these characters that most people who would, tell you about superheroes would have never heard of 10 years ago.
I mean,
now
Iron Man even, right?
Well, what's funny, I was going to say, there was this Variety headline back in the day in 2006 or 7 probably 2007 called "Here Come the B Team," and it was about Marvel's proposed lineup with Iron Man and Thor and Captain America, and they were like, they've licensed out their biggest money makers, and Marvel's like, we have Hulk, what are you talking about? But like they've licensed out Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, all these guys, and they're stuck with these nobodies. Let me check notes. They're called Iron Man, Captain America, Thor. So they've already worked. They know, like Feige knows. Okay, just make people care about these characters, and then the notoriety of the superhero moniker will come along. And can I offer a tiny yes and to your point, Jeff, which is that I don't think Chris Evans is the only Captain America. I think Chris Evans is the only Steve Rogers. And I think what we're about to see with Falcon and Winter Soldier is the origin story of Sam as Captain America.
Right.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna get a female Iron Man, and we're gonna get all those things that have happened in comics.
Right.
I don't think that's the end of those monikers, as you so rightly point out. But I do think they have the courage and the strength of their conviction to understand that just because these characters have been successful doesn't mean you have to ride these characters into the ground. They use the success to build up other characters so that you've got, Black Panther being the biggest movie in the world, and you've got these other set of heroes that now flesh out the world and are interesting in their own right, and all that stuff. I just think it's hard to overstate how rare that is in Hollywood, right? That no one does that. No one does that, right? You have, even in Disney, you have, well, let's make another fucking Obi-Wan movie.
Yeah.
Let's make a Han Solo prequel trilogy.
Let's remake The Lion King and make the songs kind of worse, basically. Yeah.
No one does that. No one does that. People go, what do the people want? Let's just give them more of that.
Yeah.
And Marvel goes,
DC
no.
is like, yeah. He's like, are you Batman? No, okay. Superman? No. Oh, okay.
How
Batman?
many Jokers do you
what
want?
about-
We'll give you
what about-
all the Jokers.
We got
We'll give
all
you
the
all the
different
Jokers.
Jokers,
How many?
yes.
Is there anybody else in Hollywood who wants to play Joker? You can do it too. It is, but I mean, it's not just a thing to rip on DC or Warner Brothers. It's literally it's Hollywood, right? That's the mentality, is ride the fucking thing into the ground. Give us Rocky Part 8, right? It is crazy the level of I think smart thinking that Feige and his team have brought to bear here, and it's also crazy how people don't seem to be learning from that lesson.
No, I thought for like a minute DC was really gonna like figure it out, and then
they might still. I think there's this thing called the Snyder Cut coming out in a couple
heard
weeks.
of it.
Joanna?
I don't know what you're talking
It fixes
about.
everything.
Yeah.
It fixes everything.
Yeah.
I may or may not have seen like 2 minutes of it today and been like, oh my god. But
The good news is, Joanna, that's such a tiny fraction of the 4 hours runtime.
But I think what you're describing, Jeff, elsewhere is fear. This
Yes.
IP dependent fear of like, if we don't serve them something familiar, they won't come. And Feige's like, well, I am going to serve them something familiar. To your guys' point earlier, that Marvel pre-roll is gonna come. They're gonna hear that music. They're gonna see that logo, and they're gonna be like, "This, I know, I'm in for a good time." That's how I used to feel about the glittery Lucasfilm logo, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So sad.
and so there's
So
a
sad.
familiarity. He's selling like a familiarity of Marvel, but not falling back on that crutch of like we have to recycle these characters. There's still
Yeah.
an opportunity, as you guys say, like, let's say they decide whether or not with Evan Peters, I don't know. But there's an opportunity via the multiverse to do something like that, like Into the Spider-Verse, I think was so brilliant in the way that it was like actually several Peter Parkers can be interesting. Not the way that Sony live action has done it, but but it can be interesting, and you've got Robert Downey Jr. out there being like, never say never about coming back, you know what I mean? So like we could get a multiverse Tony Stark. I there's a part of me that hopes they won't. But if anyone can do it in a way that will feel not cheap, it would be, I suppose, Marvel at this point. So
Well, I think that was all well put by both of you, and I agree with you, Jeff. I think this was a big swing, right? And they really went out on a limb with those first few episodes, I think, right? Because those first few episodes were potentially alienating. I know because I was somewhat alienated.
I wanted to tell you. I
yeah.
wanted to tell you something, Dave. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I know I've been chattering a lot, but
No,
like
not at all.
You and a few other people mentioned that like if they had only shown us the first 3 episodes in a chunk, I wouldn't have been. That's my Dave Chen impression. I
Wow.
wouldn't have been
It's pretty
so
good.
mad.
It's really good. Really good.
about whatever, if you'd only got to see the end of episode 3 when Monica gets booted out of the hex, right? That Matt Shackman said in this interview with Fat Man Beyond that was their original plan, to show the first 3 in a chunk on one night, but that they were so behind the gun on VFX stuff because of COVID that they had to spread it out a bit more.
They literally needed another week to finish the show, basically.
Yeah, he said he finished editing the finale like right up until it was airing. So
Yeah.
that's the and I believe on. I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I believe actually that's why we're getting a pause before Falcon and the Winter Soldier starts, because they too are behind the gun due to COVID delays and reshoots and stuff like that. So we'll see.
It's incredible that we have this entertainment at all, during this time. So I hope everyone was safe when they made it, and I'm glad to have gone on this journey, even though we all on the podcast have very, very mild disagreements. But anyway, those are our thoughts on WandaVision Season 1. Joanna Robinson, you've obviously been working on covering WandaVision Season 1. So why don't you tell people what stuff you have coming out about WandaVision, where people can find your other stuff on WandaVision. We'll link to it on the show notes.
Yeah, so this week we've got a wrap-up episode with Catherine Hahn and Jack Schaefer on the Still Watching podcast or Vanity Fair. That's mainly where you're going to find stuff like this from me. We're going to be doing Falcon and the Winter Soldier next. I've got some stuff on the site, but I found that the VF paywall is hard for some comics fans to climb over. So the podcast is the better place to find that stuff, I think.
There are discounts once in a while. People got to keep an eye out for it, but there's sometimes great deals. Yeah.
Subscribe to Vanity Fair.
Subscribe.
But also, yeah. There was a great interview with Emma Caulfield I did at the end of last week. I really loved talking to her about being cast as sort of an intentional red herring, that they like put her in there with the idea that she would be distracting to genre fans and stuff like that.
She played Dottie in the show.
Yeah. So that's like, most of where you can find me. Like I said, I'm working on a book about Marvel Studios. That's why I could quote a Variety headline from 2007. And I have a podcast about the series Lost. We're in season 5 of Lost. And we've got some fun guests on that show too. So that one's called The Storm. So
the original Angry Fan Theory show.
Exactly.
Joanna Robinson and I also do some podcasting together over on our Patreon pages. So you can follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/DaveChan or patreon.com/StormOfSpoilers if you want to hear us talk about, I don't know, I don't even think I should say what it is we talk about. It's a secret. But you can find it on our Patreon pages. So check them out there.
Personal.
Yep. And we'll just leave it at that. Well, Joanna, it's been a delight to have you on. We really appreciate it. And that's going to bring us to the end of this week's episode of the Slash Filmcast. You can find more episodes of this podcast at slashfilmcast.com. Email us at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. Our theme song comes from adamwarrock.com. Our spoiler bumper comes from filmmaker Kyle Hillinger. Our weekly plugs music comes from Noah Ross. This episode was edited by Beatty Zhang. Next week on this podcast, we will be reviewing Raya and the Last Dragon, which you can rent for $30 on Disney Plus. Permanent rental.
Yeah.
And in the After Dark, we'll be covering some Coming to America. This week's After Dark, we'll try to talk a little bit about Coming One America. So look forward to that at patreon.com.
If only there was some term for renting something permanently.
Indeed. Patreon.com/filmpodcast. Support the show there. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Thanks to everyone in the chat for showing up. We hope you enjoyed. And we are going offline now because we're going to record the After Dark. But thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you.